What's this? We supposed to hang
That's
out?
been on there since the other night.
We supposed to hang out or something?
Oh.
Who's this from? Les?
I don't know who put it out here. Might be. Oh, these are paperwork that they sent, probably from Les.
Huh?
No, I don't.
Well,
You
it's,
want to show me? Yeah. I'm always looking for the key to unlock it. The key to unlock. It's always locked in the cage.
Let's say a formal meeting, just open the meeting and that'll be it, won't it?
well, see, yeah, I don't know what do we,
Or it's just discussion, isn't it?
it's a loan committee. What, this one, the second one? We got that loan committee meeting first, that
Yes.
emergency.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, we got that one, what, for the tax sale?
Yeah.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, because I think they want, Mike and somebody wants to buy more property than just what we talked about the last time.
Yeah.
They want to buy what he owns outside of the city, which, you know, hey, whatever.
How you doing?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, that's just
Did you pass these out then?
We all, that's the stuff that they sent you? Okay.
well, among other things.
Yeah,
but
well,
I
no.
condensed it to what we thought. What I thought.
And that's about what they spend a year, 17 million?
Well, that's what all the capital outlays are every year the same thing. So this is right.
Their budget.
This.
Well, damn.
They're pretty cheap.
She makes more money than I do.
I like all, that's what I have, it was $3,000, 14 colleges.
Wouldn't it be cheaper? What, got him out of money? Wouldn't it be cheaper?
What's up, buddy?
Not too much. What about you?
Busy day.
Seen you guys out there laying stuff out for Fall Fest.
Yeah. Going on pretty good.
Were they actually working, Aaron? I heard they were gonna do a
No,
walkthrough.
they were talking.
Oh, okay.
That is work.
Yeah, I didn't know.
How you doing, Randy? I'm here.
All right.
I called that guy back. I did. Yeah, I asked for him, it was him, and they're like, no, I went on and on, but you can't help me. He said, he's out to lunch. He'll be back in an hour. I said, you can't help me. I said, the other guys put my phone number in and brought it right up. And now I can't help you, it's just him. So then I waited about an hour, 2 hours, called back. Oh, no, he's out for a day. I was like, oh, listen, he's actually out for lunch. And I Googled the number, and they're like, all kinds of
4:30 you don't
people
want to say
talking about these people, like a scam or something.
Said 4:30.
Yeah,
Oh, you Googled it?
Yeah.
Everybody ready?
but Jake gets seated.
Yeah. When he hung up on me, I was
Bill
like,
wanted me to-
They hung up on me, too.
Okay, I don't know anything
I
about
was asking
him.
all these questions, he hung up on me too.
He never called me, so I don't know.
I called him 3 times.
You called me, I ain't heard nothing out of him today.
All right. We'll get started.
It's gonna be late. Oh, okay.
Falls Loan Committee meeting to open. Roll call, please.
Okay, Jane Pope. Present. Aaron Cook.
Here.
Bill Bruner is absent, or so far. Mike Lawrence.
Here.
J.R. Holcraft.
I'm here.
Leslie Votaw.
here.
Mayor Carr. And myself.
Okay. Mike, you want to call us?
Yeah, I think this meeting was called to order over the tax sale tomorrow. I wanted to just make a motion.
Hold on just a second.
I'm
Let me just clarify, because I did talk with Mr. Stratman this afternoon too.
Okay.
Okay. We have the 2 USON, which nobody disputes.
Can you talk louder?
The 2 USON Holdings, which is the other loan that's delinquent. That's the thing with Harrison. That's 1 and 2. There's Tower Road, which is Links Development Corporation. Which that's the one just on Tower Road.
That's the storage units.
Then there is the Walters property, which there's 3 parcels for the Walters property, right? And then there's Lot 1 and Lot 5 of Waterview Commerce Park, which is the main one. The 50,000 is what's owed on that. Now, the next 2 are Wilson Creek Business Park, Those are the ones that Aurora said they would want to bid on because it involves a road right-of-way of their road, so, that is a total of about $1,700, and they, Mr. Stratman said he was going to go and bid on it unless we do, okay? I want to let you know that. And then the last two that I have.
Before we move further, does that pertain to something we need back?
That actually is across the street from our development, what we annexed. It's actually in Aurora, and it's where Bob Evans is, that subdivision. It's called the Wilson Creek Business Park. Okay, that's actually an Aurora address.
But he said they was just gonna bid on them if we didn't?
Yes.
Is that what you said?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I would like to obtain that property.
And then further, the last two then are the Kroger property, Linkmeyer Kroger LLC, which is behind Tanners Creek Drive.
Now, those are all the ones that we've already voted to do?
Well, that was what, I had a question. I called Mr. Cook at one point because those actually say Aurora, the Lot 1 and Lot 5, but Waterview Commerce Park, but that's wrong because we annexed it, so it should be Lawrenceburg. So I was like just looking for the Lawrenceburg ones. And
Well,
those
maybe I
two-
can clarify, clear it up with
Right,
my,
but Lot 1 and Lot
motion.
5 are definitely those, if we don't bid on anything else, those are the two we should.
yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I guess the decision would be whether or not to go ahead and do the Wilson Creek Business Park, which are the Aurora ones. And then there was also, I believe, the 4 that you were speaking of in Greendale, correct?
I can't remember how many there was.
There's 4 altogether, which are the Armitage condominium.
I know there's a condo. I would like
Well,
to.
but before that, remember what we discussed before, you would have to set an amount to go up to, remember?
Correct.
We never discussed the amount to bid up to.
No.
Which, I believe we should leave it just that we buy them, just for the simple reason, nobody's gonna pay, $100,000 for
Right.
that lot.
Yeah.
And we have so much invested, that we don't want somebody to outbid it over, $100 or,
True. I mean, the minimum bid, of course, is what was listed in the paper.
because we're the ones that could be out everything at the end of the day.
Correct.
What was the minimum bid?
Well, if you want to go through each one, on the Uson properties, the minimum bid on one parcel is $68.90, about $6,900, and $536 is, and those are the two that have to be sold and redeemed together. So that's a total of about $7,500. Is there any, how much do you want to go over that, I guess?
Because no matter the amount, if they redeem, they have to pay whatever the amount plus interest.
Correct.
I say we set no amount, we obtain these properties.
What's the highest minimum on
Well, that's a small one.
About
The
50.
Links Development Corp., which is that $250,000 loan, that's, only about $750, $800. The Walters property altogether is 13. Little over 40,000 is the Walters property. The 2 lots at Waterverse Commerce Park, it is 31 and 20, so that's 51,000 is the minimum. The Kroger's ones are small, it's about $2,100. That's the,
talking maybe about 150,000 might cover it all in, something like that?
yeah, if you did your math all the way through that, I didn't calculate all of them.
You said the Kroger's one was what, how much?
The Kroger's one's about 4,100.
Oh, okay, thank you.
The 2 at Wilson Creek Business Park are small too. Like I said, that's only about $1,800. So, on a side note, I know this isn't redevelopment, but the firehouse property was redeemed, was paid today.
By the owner?
Yes. And I only know that because they told me who it was that came in and paid it, so.
Okay, any more from the board?
I would
Mike wanted to make a motion.
make a motion if everybody's done, for Leslie to go to the tax sale and acquire any and all properties owned by Linkmeyer Development, Linkmeyer LLCs, any connection to Linkmeyer at the tax sale to try to help secure our loan, our interest in the property.
Put that in motion?
Yeah, that was my motion.
I got one more
And that
discussion.
includes Aurora, Greendale, Lawrenceburg, sorry.
Okay.
What about the use and?
Yeah.
We already have a motion for,
And the Greendale properties are about 11 plus 37.
And Leslie, you mentioned at our meeting that there was another property you was gonna ask us if we may be interested in.
it's around 49 to 50,000,
What, Greendale?
the Greendales.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for the
That you
Greendale.
thought we might should obtain.
Well, I mean, that would be up to Greendale redevelopment, but the Dobo House Corp is also, I mean, the monies that were given through our grant program was for that as well.
So we do have the opportunity to rebuy the Dobo house.
We could, yes.
Mike, you wanna go with that too?
Do you know, was that by chance paid or anything today? If that was-
I went and got it about right before, I'm not sure if it was right before lunch or right after lunch. That was still, and I got the full list from the treasurer. and-
Well, if the board decides to do that, I'd rather keep this one separate motion from that one,
We'll do two separate motions, okay.
to take care of all the Linkmeyer stuff in one.
Okay, we've got a motion, do I hear a second?
All right, let me understand this motion. Are you taking care of all the Linkmeyer and all the ones that were voted for before are
Done passed
solid
for
and passed?
Eason, right, that passed before.
So this would be, in addition, would be,
The Aurora and Greendale
Aurora,
properties.
that Aurora was going to bid on if we didn't, and 4 parcels in
Right,
Greendale.
and truly, the one on Tower is actually in the county, also to make sure that that's covered, so.
I had a Lawrenceburg address, so like I said,
Yeah, I
I
mean-
already assumed that was part of the prior motion.
Did I get you to repeat that since he wasn't here, so I understand what it is?
Oh,
I make a motion to purchase any and all properties in Aurora, Lawrenceburg, Greendale that is owned or affiliated with Linkmeyer personally, Linkmeyer Development LLC, or any ties to the Linkmeyer in those 3 cities, and also the county that are up for tax sale.
I second that motion.
Wait a minute, Bilbo, you got any questions about it?
No, this is what we were this is what we did.
Yeah.
The motion was on.
And what they're adding, Bill, is, there were 2, at the Wilson Creek Business Park, where Bob Evans is. Aurora did say they would bid on that if we didn't, because it involves a right of way for them. And then also the 4 parcels that are in Greendale.
4 parcels as in,
The Armitage condominium. Now, I haven't looked into the ones in Greendale, Mike. I do know, and I don't know anything for sure, but Mr. Fryman was over there, and there was some conversation concerning one of the banks taking one of them as collateral. So I don't know if this involves one of these, but
But that would still, they would have to pay, if we bought at tax sale, they'd
Correct.
have to pay us, right? Correct?
yes.
Bilbo, you have
The
no
federal
questions?
tax lien is the only thing that survives. The federal tax lien, which is the big one on Waterview.
And who's responsible
But that's
for
on
that?
Waterview, correct?
It's on Waterview.
Okay, I have a motion.
Prior owner would be responsible
No,
for
the
that.
federal lien survives the tax sale. None of the state liens do, but the federal lien does. So, yeah. I
And
mean,
who's
that's a
responsible to
consideration.
pay the federal liens?
Well, I'm sure that they'll be knocking on our door to pay the federal liens if we obtain it.
If
I
at
don't
the
know
end
that
of
they
12
can-
months that we.
Yeah, I don't know that they can do that before the redemption period is up, but.
Any more discussion? We got a motion, to hear a second.
Second.
Seconded it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? Ayes have it. Now, do
Jane, do you want to discuss that or do whatever you want to do?
Bilbo House, what about?
I think if we got an opportunity to buy it back, we ought to go for it. We got $200,000 grant money invested in it. And if it's up for tax sale, we're talking about the Dobell House in Greendale.
400,000.
How much?
400,000.
We got 400,000, well, 400,000. Does anybody want to discuss it?
Anybody have a discussion on it?
It's 7732.
Okay.
You want to put that in motion, Jane?
I make a motion to allow Leslie to buy the Dobell House.
You want to specify in Greendale too?
In Greendale for back taxes.
You hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? Ayes have it.
Bill, did you do the second?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Any more business?
The only thing I would ask, did anybody by chance catch anything else that, that's all that I'd.
No, and actually, like I said, I got the total list from the
And what
treasurer
was
today.
that one piece of property you said we might be interested in?
That was the dope.
Oh, the Dobell House.
And as I said, the other one that I was supposed to do, that the redevelopment asked me to do has been satisfied. I'm sorry, that was on the 15th.
And is there a possibility of setting up a next loan committee meeting
Sure.
while we're here?
Everybody's here, let's get a date. What's a good date for everybody?
Anything next week? I'll make myself available. If there's anything.
Try to do it at the beginning of the week, because it's going to be kind of crazy after.
Probably be Tuesday, I would say, because we got redevelopment, Monday.
5
right?
o'clock?
Is there,
There isn't,
oh, there's not a,
no redevelopment.
oh, okay, so,
Nothing on Monday, is it?
yeah, so,
No,
yeah, I'm fine. I'll
It's
be-
Monday's date.
22nd.
Want to do it Monday night?
I'd be fine.
Is that all right with everybody?
No,
Get it?
no. I've missed about every single one of the cross-country meets of my boys,
Okay.
because they're all Mondays.
How about Tuesday at 5? Is
Tuesday?
that all right with everybody?
I got something on the 23rd, but I can't think of, the time. I've got it on my schedule.
We could do it on the 30th, which is the following Tuesday.
Want to sit up that following Tuesday, on Thursday? 5 o'clock? Is that all right with everybody?
Works with me.
30th
Tuesday,
to 5
September
o'clock.
30th at 5 o'clock.
Can we, the 23rd.
The other thing is, though.
I think I'll be all right on the 23rd.
Let me just bring something out first, though. I guess, as the board, as the revolving loan fund committee, do you want the individuals here? I mean, if that's the case, then I'm gonna need time to notify them of the meeting.
I would,
They should be here, probably, shouldn't
right.
they? I think they should.
Well, can't you just, because we got to have a 48-hour notice for our meeting, so if we did do it this next Tuesday, can't you just send them a letter saying, hey, Tuesday night, we're going to discuss your loan, if you want to be here, be here?
There you go.
Yeah, if I have time to get the notices out before then, that's the only.
And
It's
we're
gonna be on
talking,
30th, right?
I don't know.
If we do
now
the
Jane said
30th,
it might
that
work
would
on
be
the
better, just
23rd.
because then we'd have, we'd be able to get it out for sure next week. If it wasn't.
30th be fine? 30th's fine with everybody.
That's cool with me.
All right, it's on the 30th at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
And we'll send letters out to the individuals.
And then as far as how many do you want to go through? Do you want to go through the ones that were listed on before?
That's fine with me.
Okay, is that fine with everybody?
you gonna do 6 at a time? Is that what you
It
decided?
actually ended up being 8, but that's just because of the different,
But like, there's a couple of them the same
Right.
person, so.
same person. I think there's 8.
Okay. You have any more business?
There's a question in the audience, Mayor.
Come to the podium, please. State your name.
On this loan meeting that you're having,
Name,
State your name.
I'm sorry,
oh, I'm sorry, Pam Regacci,
R.I.
Gacci. On this loan meeting that you're having, if any loans are back, are due, or delinquent, why don't you do them all at that one meeting instead of splitting them up? I mean, I know that the list that you gave at the council meeting wasn't the complete list.
No, there's 20 of them altogether.
Right, so, you know, they need, that if they're delinquent, you need to drag everybody in, you don't need to show any, it would appear favoritism or something. You know, if they're all delinquent, they all need to be addressed.
Those are the most delinquent, I guess is the best way to put it.
Delinquent's
There are some
delinquent.
maturity dates that have passed, but those people, the ones that are coming to mind, have continued to pay on those. So these are the ones that we're bringing up and that were on that list are ones that we haven't received payment, or,
Right.
you know, their maturity date is up and it's been up since, there are a couple in there that was
A couple of years,
2011.
yeah, a couple of years old, right. But I mean, if you're looking at lowering your budget next year, what was it, 18 million or something? I don't remember exactly what the number was, but you've got all these delinquent loans, and you're only gonna go after 8 of these people, and there's 13 of them.
No, we're not only going to go after 8, that's 8 at that one meeting. I mean, you can have a meeting a week later and do another 8, because it takes a lot of time.
Right, I mean, I just think that once you get that ball rolling, since it's been sitting so long, you need to keep it rolling. Don't just have one meeting and make 2 or 3 people happy and let a couple of people slide. You need to gather all at what's due you. You know, that's the least, it's what's due the city. I mean, I don't understand how they can be 2 years owing you. If it was your household, you'd need that money to run your household, so you need that money to run your city. And every month, the money from the boat gets less and less, and that money becomes more important. So, I mean, that's why I think that you should bring them all in. But that's just my opinion.
Leslie, is it possible to set up a first meeting, then a second meeting following, to bring the second
That's why I
group
was
in?
hoping that if we could do one this Tuesday, then if we could do one the following
You
Tuesday.
can't do them all one night.
Oh.
You're gonna ask to put them on. What's it?
Mike Severs. I just wondered if you got any plan on foreclosing on any of the property.
That's a decision will have to be made.
Yeah, that's been big.
Well,
Probably a lot depends upon tomorrow's
And
sale.
part of why we're pursuing these tomorrow is because a mortgage foreclosure, as you may or may not know, it takes a longer period of time. And when these came up for tax sale, that was the reason the board's going the way they are on.
If you're here on September 30th, that'll be the discussion.
Well, I do know that Lakemar's got a deal with AEP to sell them quite a bit of dirt. And Lawrenceburg, I'm sure, won't be receiving a check out of that, you know, so. He's just selling more property, dirt's property.
Do you know when that transaction's gonna take place, or when's,
It's in the works right now.
was this board aware of this, or our attorney, or our mayor?
have
Just
no idea
heard,
what it
I
is.
just heard rumors about it. I have not confirmed it with either Mr. Bischoff or Mr. Linkmeyer. I did have, Mr. Bischoff did call me about 5 minutes before I was about ready to leave. I didn't have a chance to call him back, but I do intend to call him tomorrow.
So he reached out to contact you today?
Yes.
If we obtain that property through the tax sale, he can't legally move dirt from it, can he? Continue to do that?
I don't think that would stop it, but what about
I don't know
if
where the dirt's coming
foreclosure,
from.
if foreclosure was started, can there be any kind of injunction to stop from hauling dirt off the property?
I guess it depends on if it's dirt from the actual subdivision, you know, the 2 lots that we're doing. Yeah, so I don't know. I guess we'd have to check that out. Or what I heard was it was the pits, what do they call it, the ash pits?
Ash pit's what I heard. I haven't
Ash
talked to anybody
pits,
about it, I
yeah.
just heard it.
That would be clay, I think, which is needed, and that's what my husband said, and he works over there, so, and that presumably would come from the hill, not the, I don't know.
Well, he owes you money on all the property, doesn't he?
I don't know what all property owns for sure, but
The water view, there's three lots there, and then the Walters property, which is the one down on 50.
We got about 5 minutes, we gotta wrap this up. We're gonna do something, let's do it.
So is September 30th, is that the only meeting we're setting up at this time, or want to set another one up, or?
That's fine, I don't care, it's up to you
It's up to
guys.
you guys.
Just because we got a couple weeks that we don't have our normal meetings.
It's up to you guys what you wanna do.
We have our normal meeting on the 6th and the 20th. We could do an hour ahead of time on each one of those days to knock some of them out. You know what I mean? Get here at 5 on the 6th and the 20th.
But there's no way we can do anything next week, one day?
It'd have to be first of the week.
I mean, if that Tuesday, because Jane come back and said she'd be okay for that Tuesday.
I think my appointment's at 3:30, and you're talking 5.
If we could have next Tuesday and the following Tuesday, and that will get rid of, or get through majority of them anyhow.
Okay.
I can't on
Of
the
the-
23rd. It's our last practice
What about that
for
Monday?
soccer.
You know, we're
Well,
doing-
she couldn't do Monday.
Leslie can't do Monday.
What about Monday, the 29th? The day before having
We got a
one?
meeting, with a
No.
work session of council, not alone.
No, we don't.
The 29th?
Nope, that got set off until the 6th.
Okay, you wanna do the 29th at 5 o'clock?
That'd be fine with me. We'd have one Monday and one Tuesday.
There's another
We
meeting.
get this stuff knocked down?
There is one. That's out there running. It's the EIAC. That's out there running.
Okay, we'll set up the meeting for the 29th and the 30th at 5 o'clock.
Well, if that's the case, can we do half of them on Monday and the other half on the next day?
You wanna get through it?
Try to get through them in 2 days?
It's up to you guys.
Can we make the meeting on the 29th at 6?
6? Is that all right, everybody?
I don't know.
29th, 6
29th, 6 o'clock?
Yeah,
Monday, right?
yes.
Okay.
So our LF meeting. 29th at 6 and the 30th at 5.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Entertain a motion adjournment?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Uh,
Adjourned.
Can we have a 5-minute recess, Mayor?
That's about all we got. We gotta get started on the time.
Take that long for everybody.
Leslie, when did you say that, policeman thing is?
I've only seen two.
When is the police works thing?
On October 6th.
It was supposed to be the 29th.
Yeah.
I thought we moved it, from
At the
before
last
that to
meeting.
the 29th.
No, at the last meeting, we moved it from the 29th to the 6th before. One started at,
Oh, we got 3, all kinds of
Right.
stuff. Yeah, no, that's other stuff, that's not the police, Leslie.
yeah, it is the police too.
We had one from 4 to 5, one's the River Watch,
From 5 to
6, what's 4 to 5?
4 to 5, because it's Board of Works and Council from 5 to 6. And then from 4 to 5 is the police.
What's 5 to 6?
5 to 6 is Board of Works and
Council for
Council
what?
and River Watch.
Oh, River Watch, okay. Yeah,
Right.
and,
Isn't that right? Because if we were gonna have a joint.
and then
meeting,
4 to 5 is the police one, okay.
And then at 4 o'clock is the police, because that's when, you can double check with Wayne, but
Is that on, you said that's on the 6th?
We got 4 to 5 is the police work session on their software, on the 6th. 5 to 6 is Board of Works and Council on River Watch.
Police River Watching Council.
Yeah, on the 6th.
4 o'clock is the police, and then from 5 to 6 is the River Watch. Hey, how are you? Oh, good. Awesome.
Good, buddy.
Good to hear.
What's the other one, Zach?
Good to see you.
So, that's Board of Works.
What have you got, what have you written
I got
down?
5 to 6 River Watch.
Okay, 4 to 5 is that one for the police software.
Special.
Oh, now, bad back.
You older than me.
I'll be in my, am I gonna be dressed up? Special meeting police. And I invited Mike Brown and his attorney.
What's the plan there?
The thing is, he does have a mediation clause in the lease that says we have to terminate if we can't agree to the terms. So there may be a lawsuit to try to. But he cannot expect us to right. I think we're fine. The thing is, go to work, there's also a statute that says you have to pay whether, you know, I mean, this is a renewal.
Hi, how are you?
Could argue say that, because it does give him, there's a portion there that says, if the parties can't agree, you know, that the parties agree, if we didn't give them notice of termination. Okay. And we could have, but we didn't, because everybody didn't know, I mean, everyone was going back and forth on what they wanted to do. So by last October, we didn't have time to have them terminate. But now, we can presume.
She had to have she had a double
terminate, because it's still on
They had to take one out.
It'd still be in it for 6 months.
They wasn't sure how they was gonna do it and all that. But it worked out good. Worked out real good.
It's gonna be a good
Now they're gonna do the other.
I think, especially when you turn in
No, sure.
handwritten.
Oh, I know, I said, I told them, his attorney, and I said, we've been asking since April of last year.
You never know, do you?
I said, you can't do an open meeting, he said it was $450,000 that he put in, and I said, he has not iota of documentation, and I said, he's got to have a package here, he's got to have financial. He said, well, maybe we can get the value from the assessor's office, and I'm like, it doesn't matter.
It's not gonna happen.
No, because we're tax exempt. But there's not even going to be an assessment, right?
Well, he's got to have this. Like this missing, that in, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
He's got to have that.
And you know, I think Mario can verify the things that they have done down here. But I don't know. It could be, it definitely could be another lawsuit
Right here.
because of
Gary. I can't tell, I don't know either, I've lost track.
I went to school with it. It took me about 20 years to figure out which one was which. Yeah. Right there. Tell you what they used to do with these kids.
on what?
They do a class, and you switch classes. And the teacher say, well, Barry, what you do? Say, I'm not Barry, I'm Derek.
No, whether or not. I don't know whether or not. An orange foreclosure.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's the thing, like, say, with homes, I know
Right.
homes, you can live there.
Right. Yes, but it's you make paper. So at least you're supposed to pay.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, let's get started.
Yep.
Yeah,
Everybody ready?
yeah.
Come on, get up there, let's go.
Oh, wait a minute.
Put that down.
Mike, you about ready?
Well, that lemonade is the EIAC, which is the conference. So that's probably.
That's the best one.
Yeah.
You guys ready? Tallest joint meeting, LCD and council, the order. All our people's here, I don't know who's all on your board, so.
Well, we still need to do roll call.
Okay, do a roll call for
Jane Pope,
Present.
Aaron Cook.
Here.
Bill Bruner.
Here.
Mike Lawrence.
Here.
J.R. Holcraft.
I'm here.
Leslie Votaw.
Here.
Mayor Carr.
Here.
And myself. That's as much as I can do.
Well, and I guess we just need to note for the record,
All your board members
who
here?
your board members are. Yeah, you
Yeah,
can go to
that's
the
good.
podium.
Can you just go ahead and do a roll call, Evie?
I've got it. I'll take minutes for you, LCD.
We'll go ahead and do roll call over the minutes.
Let's see.
EB Sites LCD Board Chairman. We have Mike McCabe. Here. Mike Knoll.
Yep.
Dave Laurie.
Yeah.
Darrell Poindexter. Randy Tyler. Dr. Dennis Richter is missing, absent, and myself.
Thank you.
And we have legal counsel, Richard Butler. You called the meeting, Mr. Mayor, so I'll leave you, Your Honor, in charge. We'll follow your lead, what we want to do here.
Actually, we want to see what you guys are going to bring to us.
Well, can I speak, gentlemen? We've recognized for some time that the light at the end of our financial tunnel is dimming. The last few years, we've seen our interest income decrease radically. We've seen our financial statement cash balances go from plus 50 million to 37 million. And we see no end in, well, we do see end in sight for our requirements to meet Army Corps mandates, which were just placed upon us really this year, late last year. That's an additional $2.3 million plus in capital outlays that we did not anticipate for the year 2014 and 2015. In addition, once we finish this mandate from the Army Corps, hopefully, we don't see any reason why we won't be able to proceed with the project that will ultimately result in certification for the Lawrenceburg levy. All of that being said, that's an additional project. We can see our capital reduced from 37 million to 25 to 27 million in the next 3 years. We have an agreement with the city of Lawrenceburg, or a lease agreement between Lawrenceburg and the LCD that pays us $500,000 annually. With the decrease in the revenue, the loss of earnings from our interest income, we do not make enough money, bring enough money in to cover our annual operating expenditures. And I want to backtrack. At the meeting that we had with Councilman Carr and Holcraft and Your Honor and Legal Counsel Votal, I threw out an operational number of 1.1 million. Gave it some thought, recently working on a budget. That 1.1 million was just our personnel expense. To date, not covering any capital outlays, not covering all the work that you've seen going on around town by the third-party contractors, we spent $1,588,205.56 to operate that. So you can see the 500,000, and so if you extrapolate that out,
That's $1,585,000, what?
$1,588,205.56
And that's for to date?
to date through through August 31st.
Okay.
Can you repeat that, please?
$1,588,205.56 through August 31st. We can see, again, operational expenses increasing in our capital outlays. There just isn't going to be enough money sometime in the not-too-distant future to operate the Lawrenceburg Conservancy District. And that, we really don't have many options, other than to perhaps consider a tax. And quite frankly, taxes didn't work before when the operations were at a minimum. The LCD or the Flood Control District always had to rely on funds from I think they came from the Civil City, I believe, in the past. If Debbie, by the way, Debbie Biddle did not make our secretary, clerk treasurer, did not make the meeting. We used to get the monies from the Civil City of Lawrenceburg to maintain operations. And tax, frankly, isn't the answer because there are just not enough property owners in the city of Lawrenceburg to tax to run the operation. That's what led us to the meeting that we had. We threw out numbers at the time. I said, personally, I was looking for enough money to just cover our operational shortfall. I still am. However, at the time, I thought that was 1.1 million, so I was looking for maybe a $600,000, $700,000 number. Dr. Laurie, or Dr. Richter and Mr. Laurie, they wanted additional dollars, and they came up with a $2 million number. Ultimately, and that's a 2 million total number. Ultimately, the LCD board, after a couple of months of discussion, took a vote, and it was unanimous that they would come to the city council and ask for the additional $1.5 million to bring up to a total of a $2 million contribution. Again, I said tax was the only alternative, and not a very good alternative. The other alternative was to debate the validity of the existing lease agreement. And at that point, if you don't have any questions for me, I'd like to bring Mr. Butler up here to have a discussion about what that dispute or what the differences in that agreement are as the city sees them and as the LCD sees them. Yes, Mr. Brewer?
Now, as far as monies, and I realize that Lawrenceburg has been a big contributor, and even in the beginning was the money for the Conservancy District a long time ago, correct?
For the first 5 years of the development agreement, we gave half of
I'm saying a long time ago.
No, Lawrenceburg agreed, per an Army Corps mandate again back in 1939, Lawrenceburg agreed to establish a separate entity called the Lawrenceburg Flood Control District. And it remained the Lawrenceburg Flood Control District until 1983. 1983, I believe it was Mayor Nance, at the suggestion of others, created or applied for Conservancy District status. The Corps agreed to transfer the operations to the Conservancy District, as well as Lawrenceburg agreeing to do that. The district, again, was created at the request of the Army Corps. It was changed to the Conservancy District in 1983. The reason for the change was the hope that they could find other revenue sources as a Conservancy District. That never happened. It still continued to be a drain on the city of Lawrenceburg and their operations. Does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm. Now, it's my understanding that Greendale is also protected by a levy that you maintain?
We maintain the Greendale levy. Again, with an agreement between Hollywood, Lawrenceburg, Greendale, and Dearborn County, the Lawrenceburg, or the Greendale levy was turned into a certified flood protection levy by the national. It was recognized by FEMA as meeting FEMA certification requirements. Upon please?
When was that?
2000, I believe. 2001, maybe.
It was certified in 2000.
Yes, 2000 or 2001. Would have been 2001 because that was my first year, and I remember when we accepted the levy, it obtained certification by FEMA, and we accepted the levy at the LCD. That was one of the conditions or requirement of all the parties. And we do maintain the Greendale levy. It is not a Army Corps levy, it's a FEMA levy. There is a difference.
But you do maintain it?
We do maintain it.
You spend money to maintain it?
We spend money to maintain it.
Okay.
Is that part of your operational expenses?
Yes. To date, we have put in about 125 man-hours to mow that levy. I can tell you that that's about a $3,300 cost. I've not broken out the fertilizer cost, the seed cost, wear and tear on the equipment, but actually we do keep track of man-hours, and we can break down what that levy does cost us to maintain. That being said, just like we're suffering through trying to get the Lawrenceburg levy certified by FEMA or accredited, we're going to have that same problem, or we're going to have that same requirement to get the Greendale levy certified or accredited in the next 4 years. And there will be expenses to do that. We have had that levy inspected. There was a rather thorough report issued by the Army Corps of Engineers to bring it up to their standards. And frankly, we have an engineer's off-the-wall guesstimate of approximately $3 million to do what needs to be done to meet Army Corps standards, and we assume that will bring it up to third-party engineering standards and get us the FEMA accreditation that we need for the Greendale levy.
Well, it's also a drainage master plan the $3 million that's on your capital outlays. Can you explain what that is in Greendale?
Greendale came to the Conservancy District 3 years ago, maybe 4. They have been working for years to develop the levee protected area and to solve drainage problems on the at the south side of Greendale along the Ridge Avenue. Greendale diverted stormwater to correct interior problems with stormwater. They directed some stormwater under Ridge Avenue down into the bottomland area. That land drains and accumulates, and we frankly pump that now. It's the water that sometimes accumulates at the far end of the fairgrounds at the bottom of Ridge Avenue, near the cap fields. So we do pump water now. Greendale came to us and thought that we would be the most likely candidate or the most appropriate entity to handle their stormwater development. So the master drainage project is a stormwater development plan to basically place the pipes, drainage structures to get the water in the Greendale protected area to the number 5 pump station. That's the pump station at the fairgrounds parking lot. And early engineering estimates put a 3-phase project at about $3 million.
So that would be expenditures to the LCD
Would be.
for
We-
Greendale levy.
For the protected area by the Greendale levee. That's been on our budget item for the last 2 or 3 years. And we have not executed that because, again, our first commitment and requirement is the Lawrenceburg levee and the certification of the Lawrenceburg levee. So all other projects have taken a back seat to that.
I'm looking through the paper that was handed out to us in our manila envelopes. Does any of these reflect the expenditures that the number you gave us on any of these?
I'm not sure what you're looking at, Councilman Pope.
Well, like the $3 million improvement, for instance, you're not asking for any of that. You're asking for operational. Nearly 1.6 million. Is that correct?
Operations actually are over 2. I'm guesstimating that 1.1 should be slightly over $2 million.
Okay.
But
If since they're asking about Greendale, do you know how much of operational is contributed to taking care of Greendale's levee versus taking care of Lawrenceburg's?
As I said before, I can tell you that we have approximately 125 man-hours for mowing. We would have to, based on linear feet, would be a fairly good way to determine the cost of seed and fertilizer. I'm not aware of any seed, fertilizer, manpower, wear and tear on equipment. I mean, if you wanted an accurate number, I'd sit down with Mr. Seymour, we talk about what it does to our equipment and how much fertilizer and seed he's put down, but it's not a big number at this point. It will be a large number, a capital outlay to bring the Greendale levee up to Army Corps standards will be a large number, and coincidentally, that's also a $3 million estimate, and those are just estimates.
But that's not part of operation.
No. Well,
As far as
the fertilizer, the seed, the equipment, manpower is.
What's the operations pumping water for Greendale? What's the cost there?
Quite frankly, that's a minimum. That pump station 5 runs all the time. It runs because the racetrack pumps water to it 24 hours a day, and we have to pump that water out of there. We'd like to find an engineering resolution to that, because as it pumps water, it also brings sand and silt, and that builds up in the bottom of the pump station, and we have to bring in a vac truck once a year to go down and clean that out. Otherwise, the impellers get stuck in the hard pan down there, and we can't operate the equipment. And that being said, we do operate, and again, I'll have to, when there is water that you see at the base of Ridge Avenue, we do have 3 small pumps that cycle on and off just past the parking lot, the old Shinley Drive, or whatever they called it there. There are 3 pumps that cycle on and off that drain water through French drains to the pump station, and we pump it to our pump station. Again, the city of Lawrenceburg operates a pump, I think, 24 hours a day, sort of a desalination pump, to keep chlorinated water away from your primary water supply that pumps water to your water treatment plant. And we could find that number, because one of our other larger costs is electric cost that we pay to the city utility. And we've been fortunate to date this year, that cost has only been about $80,000. We have had a very favorable flood season this year and last year. 3 and 4 years ago, we ran pump stations around the clock for 22 days and 17 days and had $250,000 electric bills.
My question is, on the number you gave us, the 1,588,205.56, you said that your yearly expenditures that you're...
No, I said that that's the expenditures year-to-date, and when I say year-to-date, I mean August 31st. So that doesn't include the expenditures for the first 2.5 weeks of September.
Okay, can I find that number on any of these reports?
No, you're not looking at what I've penciled all over. Well, again, I don't know what you're looking at.
We have the budget estimates for 13 and 14. Obviously, these are only, there were no numbers that were actually spent on the 14 budget stuff.
So this is January 1 to date, your expenditures?
Yes, and if I may, real quick, Leslie, if we can.
Well, to August 31st.
August 31st?
No, I don't have what you actually spent. So I was able to share that for them with 13, because at 13 it was 1.1 for your total operational cost. 1.132 on 13, but I didn't have the information to give them as far as the 14.
Can I ask real quick, EB, when you was going through, did you say you have approximately 36 million or 37 million left?
The balance sheet from the end of 13, Mike, was 39,210,000.
As of August 14th, we have $37,701,127. I can tell you that we're going to, I think the board will approve payment. This Thursday, the contractor, we've had, if you've noticed, along Cinder Road and then around town, otherwise, red and white trucks. There have been 5 men here for 50 hours a week with 3 pieces of equipment working on the relief wells, working very, very quickly and aggressively to get those relief wells rehabilitated so we can do a final test of our system and come up with an interior drainage study that will hopefully satisfy the Army Corps of Engineers. In less than 3 months, we've accumulated over $700,000. Just shy of $1 million now, with another month under the belt, that we'll be paying out Thursday night, that we did not anticipate in any budget.
And that's for engineering expenses?
No, these men are out there cleaning wells. It takes 8 to 10 hours a day to clean a well. Once they've videoed it, water tested it, clean it, test it, and video again, is being done to satisfy a mandate from the Army Corps of Engineers to find out what the condition of our existing system is.
Where would that come out of your budget? I mean, where would that be in your budget?
Well,
Under the 9 million that you have set aside?
we take it out of the 9 million. Quite frankly, the State Board of Accounts doesn't look as closely at us as they do you, because we don't have a tax rate, so we don't have to appropriate. As long as we've got it budgeted, we can take it from wherever.
Well,
I can
because
try and
for
work on
instance,
that.
the 9 million on the capital outlays in 13, you spent 226,000 out of that.
Then that's what Debbie must have taken it out of that number.
So that necessarily wouldn't be part of your operational expense then, correct? I mean, it'd be.
We would have called that a capital outlay requirement, yes. and we try to assign engineering costs to projects under capital outlays.
Does the update on the pumping stations include working with the George Street Park? Is that in part of the plan?
We have been working to try to finalize that project for 4 years.
I know.
And finally, the Army Corps, not finally, they said, don't forget, you can't do anything until you satisfy the covenants and the original letter of no objection that was issued in 2010. And in there, it said we had to determine the functionality of our existing relief well system. And we had an engineer that said that relief well system wasn't functional. That would have meant the highest probable maximum cost of $14 to $15 million for a new project. The Army Corps didn't like some of the engineering that was done on that project and that determination. They asked us to get a second opinion. We did. That second opinion was much more favorable. They say your system certainly is functional, but we can't tell how much until you clean your system. And cleaning 176 relief wells, finding 176 relief wells, let me tell you that probably 70% of them were not accessible. They've been filled over, built over, they've been damaged beyond repair. Of the 176, we found, I believe, and Paul can yell out a number, but I think we're north of 140, but not 150, the number of wells that we actually found. These were 3-inch wells in the ground. And if you've seen Ryan Howard and his crew, or Tom Gehring and his crew, or Woody Bucher and his crew, we've had 3 different construction crews working simultaneously to get these wells uncovered and raised so that we could do the testing required to find out how our system will function. Did that answer your question? Oh, back to that. Until we get that done, until we get the Army approval to move forward, then we have to go back in and pay an engineering firm to redesign a system, a fix, and that redesign is what you're interested in, well, where they will tell us we need to put new pump stations, if any. And so if we
have their permission to do it? Are they okay?
We have to have the Army Corps' okay to do it. Yes.
So we'll be looking at another 4 years?
No. Paul?
I didn't hear what she said.
She said 4 years for the project. The latest possible timeline on the NWS project?
NWS, I think will wrap up early, late winter. I'll say February, March, but then you got a lot of engineering and studying to do on the information that will be passed on to an engineer. Well, you know, how do you, and you're saying 4 years, we hope not, but if we get done and the engineers give us a big project, James, you know, we might be looking at, truthfully, I just don't see us ever being done with this. This is gonna be a battle for our grandkids.
Well, I'm talking about getting the pumping set up to keep the water out of George Street Park. He said that you have to go through all this before you can even get to that.
We're gonna have to do that necessarily to do it.
Well, and Jane, remember, please, that I sent out a few months ago, I copied the mayor, I don't know if the council members got it, but it was a 2-page email to Senator Donnelly's office. They wanted an update on what was going on here in town. They wanted a summary of how we got to where we are. And as part of that document that went out, there was another document from FEMA that talked about overland storage that was originally designed into the Lawrenceburg Flood Protection Project, as the Army Corps calls it. And overland storage, essentially, is the middle school, the primary school, the tennis courts, the Little League ball fields, the adult center, the community center, the firehouse, the George Street Park area. The Army Corps anticipated water accumulating all around town. So we may never be able to get rid of that water. It's designed to, the collection system is designed to flow to that area right now. If we have to change the collection system, because of engineering input and design, then yes, we may be able to remove that water. Does that answer your question?
Satisfactorily for right now. Thank you.
You're welcome. And by the way, I gave a presentation to the Lawrenceburg School Board a week ago Monday because they heard about that overland storage issue and they were kind of concerned. Any other questions?
I did have some questions as far as the deposits. We had the transaction detail by account that was produced to us, January 1st of 2010 through January 23rd of 2014. There's many deposits of, I'm just not sure what these transactions were. It says cumulative cap improvement deposit.
We have, and I can't answer all your, I don't have what you have in front of you, and Debbie would be the one to answer specifics, but cum cap improvement, the board some time ago recognized that they were accumulating a lot of cash and wanted to come up with a mechanism to preserve that cash as long as possible, and a certain percentage of all of the receipts or revenues we have goes to a cum cap account, and that cum cap account has to have a supermajority of the board members approve any reduction in that account.
So these different deposits,
EB, you want this one to look at?
I'm probably still not going to be able to answer.
so what you're saying is, like, for instance, if you, these are just the different CDs then?
Again, we existed for years, and still do, just on CDs, and at one time we had a significant list, and the CD list has been drawn down. We now only have, 12 CDs, but they mature. One of the other objectives of the Finance Committee was to ladder our CDs so that they matured in different years. So we had 2, 3, 4, 5 year CDs out there, so they were constantly maturing, and we've captured that interest income, and a percentage of that interest income would go to the cum cap account and to other various accounts as Debbie saw fit to move them.
So, but the majority of your assets are in those CDs and maintenance improvement CDs and maintenance CDs, is that correct?
They are, again, do you have a register of investments?
I do. I have, it's the third page of the balance sheet. It's actually, it would be as of, the latest one I was able to get from, under my public records request was May 13th, 2013.
That register of investment just shows the CDs, and then on a monthly basis, Debbie produces basically a cash balance report in and out that looks like this.
Oh, yes.
So that
Yeah. I did have those until the end of 13.
That accounts for every dollar that we have and where it's located and what fund it's in. Any more questions for me?
Anybody have questions?
And if not, Your Honor, I'd like to recommend that we bring Mr. Butler up here for a very brief summary of how we got to this point, because he can be windy. All right with you?
Got the timer.
Very brief, I know you're already doing this too.
You have a timer?
Hi, folks.
You're on the clock, Richard.
I'm going to, if EB and the rest of the board will let me get away with it, decline his invitation to debate the lease agreement. I will say that I gave the opinion to the LCD that the lease agreement was void because I thought it was a contract in excess of appropriation. I think you've all dealt with that before. I think if there were 3 little words in that lease agreement, it'd be fine. Those words are subject to appropriation. Leslie and I have talked about it. She's made arguments which, in my opinion, quite frankly, are sound arguments why I'm wrong. And I think Leslie probably recognizes, too, that I may be right. And I'd be a fool not to recognize that your lawyer might be right, maybe the lease isn't void, and Leslie's no fool, but she would be if she thought maybe I'm not right and the lease is certainly not void. But I don't want to talk about that tonight. I don't want to debate it with any of you. I certainly don't want to debate it with your lawyer, Leslie. More importantly, I think if that's what we do, we're both going to leave here unhappy. You're going to leave here thinking it's not void. My group's going to leave here thinking it is void. But more importantly, we missed the opportunity that you're all calling this joint meeting gives us all, which is to do the work of the people each of these groups represents. These guys sitting back here don't have a problem. The freeholders that they represent have the problem. These guys just got to try to solve that problem for those freeholders. Those freeholders are your constituents. They're the people that own property that's protected by the levy. Those are the same folks you represent. You represent more than that. Lawrenceburg's bigger than that. But what we've got here tonight is an opportunity to fix their problem. And what I do want to do is remind you all of a little history. I was involved back then. I want to take you back 19 years ago, and Leslie, you alluded to it earlier. And when the boat came to town, they wanted to put the moneymaker, the Golden Goose, on the property owned by the Conservancy District. And the board then and the city leaders then, I think, were very, very, very wise. And what they all got together and decided was the LCD shouldn't get all this money. There's very limited things that the LCD can do with this money. It'd be better if the bulk of this money that was going to be generated by that boat sitting on the LCD's property, it'd be better if the bulk of that money went to the city, because you got a lot more freedom and flexibility with what you can do with that money. You can do more for the people with that money than the LCD could. They can fix drainage, they can take care of the levee and a handful of other things, but not near what you can do. So a deal was struck to give the LCD a whole bunch of money. Leslie, I think you said 5 years, they got half of it?
Yes.
And then it went to the $500,000?
Well, actually, I think it was extended at it was extended past that, but I was looking through all the old documents.
And I think what happened was Lawrenceburg and the LCD thought once they had that $50+ million or whatever the number was, they'd have enough money they could operate that thing forever, and they'd never have to put another tax on those freeholders. But their crystal ball and the city's crystal ball at that time wasn't as clear as it should have been. Two big things happened that kind of brought us to where we are, and I think E.B. talked about both of them. One was the extraordinary low interest rate environment. Even though we had some cash in the bank, it's earning very, very little. I think you've all got the same problem there. The other is Hurricane Katrina. Nobody saw that coming. Before Hurricane Katrina, the Corps would come and look at your levee and size it up and say, yeah, it's good, or no, it's not. Typically, they said, yeah, it's good, and that's what they did in New Orleans, and they discovered that, well, that's embarrassing, that thing broke and we were wrong. And so now what they've said is, you guys got to certify to us that your levee's good, and that's why all the engineering, the relief wells you've heard about, and a bunch more work's going to be done so that we can satisfy the Corps that the levee will do what it was designed to do. Everybody that owns property down here isn't going to have to pay expensive flood insurance premiums, and more importantly, our property and our lives aren't going to be at risk because that levee's going to work come spring when everything starts thawing and melting and the river valley starts filling up. So I want to applaud the council and the mayor then. I want to applaud the LCD board then, and I hope that my board today and you all today will exercise the same kind of wisdom and judgment they did. There's still a lot of money floating around the community, and we got an opportunity to commit some of it to the freeholders to help solve their problem. And I want to be real honest with you all too, and I just want to share with you what I'm sharing with my guys. I ran into Lisa Lee at Ice Miller. I didn't see you at the conference, Leslie. I'm sure you had other things to do. And she said we need to get this resolved. And when we're were talking about resolving it. Here's, just real fancy, I didn't use, what's this? Excel. And after talking to Evie tonight, I found out my numbers are wrong. Thanks. And there's numbers in that left-hand margin, you'll see. Anybody not get one of these? And this is something I do, my mind works that way, try to figure out where we're at with things, and if you look down the bottom left-hand corner, it says 500K, that's $500,000, and there's a line to the right of that which says income under it, and that's the lease money, that's the revenue that the LCD gets. They actually get a little more than that. They're earning interest on the money they've got in the bank and so on and so forth, and I don't know what those numbers are over time, and I didn't chart them out, but I know right now it's not a lot of money. Mostly we're fixed at that 500,000. The line above it is 1.1 million. That's what we thought our operating expenses were, just to keep the doors open and the grass mowed and the pumps working and make sure everything does what it's supposed to do. And I've showed that line increasing over time because those costs are going to go up year to year. Roger wants a cost of living increase every year. He doesn't want to make the same old money next year that he made this year, and I don't blame him. None of us do. So I'm showing those operating expenses going up, at least at the inflation rate, whatever that might be. That's what that upward trend in that line is supposed to mean. And that hashed area between the income and the operating expense, that's our shortfall. And I say our shortfall, that's the freeholder shortfall. That's what they're short between their income and their expenses. And the way they've been making that up is that line at the top, it says 38 million. I heard from EB it's really closer to 37 million right now. And I showed it coming down drastically because I heard that our budget was at 17 million, but it's probably not going to come down that far, not trying to mislead anybody. And then I showed it trending down after that, and it says savings, because what the LCD is doing, what the freeholders are doing, is taking money out of savings to make up that shortfall. And eventually what will happen over time, and this is the problem that these guys see coming, is the savings is going to be gone. It's going to be depleted, covering the operating expense, and we're going to get that point out there on the right-hand side of the page where it says tax. And I didn't think about this, but EV has. Tax isn't going to work. It never did. There just isn't enough assessed valuation where we can put a tax on there and cover the operating expenses. And so this is the part I want to tell you. This is what I've told these gentlemen. And again, that $1.1 million number is probably not right, but what I've told these gentlemen is whatever that number should be, I think EB said north of 2. Paul will tell you that once these relief wells are refurbished, there's going to be annual operating expenses taking care of those of a few $100,000.
At least between 2 and 300,000.
So now we're not at 2.1, we're at 2.4, 2.5, whatever the number should be, and these fellows can speak to that. I've told them if you settle this litigation, and that's what we're here to do, south of that line, if you don't get at least that much or more, and if you don't also agree that that's going to increase every year, we got to have a cost of living increase on that lease just like all our employees want. If you're paying me $1 for the lease today and there's inflation this year and you're paying me $1 next year, you're only going to pay me like 97 cents. I've lost money. So what I've told them is in this negotiation, if you don't settle for north of whatever that operating expense number is, with a cost of living increase every year, you're not solving the freeholder's problem. You're pushing the freeholder's problem down the road. We're not going to run out of savings to cover the shortfall as soon as we thought, but we're not solving it. You guys sitting up here next year, or the year after that, or the year after that, and it's not going to be that quick, are going to be grappling with this problem. These guys' successors are going to be grappling with that problem too. So I think that's all I have. Don't want to debate the lease. We disagree. I think both sides make sound arguments. I think it's in both of our interests to try to settle it. And what I've told them, I've showed you our cards, is if we're south of that line, none of us have solved the problem. And last thing I'll tell you is, you're not giving the money to Richard Butler. You're not giving the money to these guys. You're giving it to the freeholders of the district, and those are also your constituents, to try to avoid them having to pay a tax most of us can't afford. Thanks, gentlemen. Ms. Pope, Leslie.
I have a question.
Yes.
how much do you figure per year inflation? What,
Well, what I've done in agreements in the past, and I'm sure Leslie's familiar with this, is you tie it to a government calculation of the inflation rate, the consumer price index. I think it's prepared by the U.S. Department of Labor, and there's various ones, and we'd have to select the right one. But the government calculates what that inflation rate is. So we don't need to say in an agreement, if we can agree to that it needs to increase by X% a year. What we need to do is pick out the right index that the government calculates. They have an index for industrial users and commercial users and consumers, and I don't know which one's the right one. We can talk about it. But what we say in the agreement is you pay X dollars this year, and then you adjust it for inflation at the U.S. government Department of Labor published rate called this. Does that make sense? Because we don't know what it's going to be. It gets calculated from year to year by the government. Anything else? Thanks, folks.
Anybody board have any more questions or anything?
Just a few comments. As far as, helping the LCD out, giving them money, pledging, whatever, on the other token is, we've got to look out for the Lawrenceburg residents. And, as far as saying, hey, we're going to give you X amount of dollars for the next whatever years, I think it's kind of hard for us to say too, yeah, we've got money in the bank, you guys have money in the bank. When is the time going to be when we have to say, say for instance, our utilities, our rates aren't where they should be. We're at a shortfall, a big shortfall.
We subsidize.
We subsidize our utilities. So, that's, and that's huge, Do you want to put a rate hike on the users? No, you don't, but there comes a certain time when you have to. And I know you all aren't in the position to have to do that. We are at a point where I think we need to, because the shortfall is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And when we enter into agreements with the LCD, such as giving you X amount of dollars a year, it's just stuff that we have to look at too. So, and I agree. We should be here for the same interest, for Lawrenceburg and the residents and so on. But just some food for thought. I mean, and I don't know what kind of a agreement you're looking for as far as long term. Can you kind of go into that? I mean, what kind of a term are you looking for? How many years are you wanting us to say, hey, we're going to help you?
Well, it would definitely need to have subject to appropriation, so the next administration or whatever, year to year, if you want to do it,
I think
You come up to the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
The current agreement's for 50 years, and I think if we can get something worked out today, we have to address that. If the terms are right, and I think from my perspective, what I would tell the guys is, if you're okay with the number and there's an inflation adjuster in there, the terms are right. Without an inflation adjuster in there, I think that's problematic and the terms aren't right. I guess that what I'm saying is, I'd recommend that we leave it at the 50 years, that we make whatever adjustments need to be made, so that we don't all end up in this position again. To me, that would be, Leslie, if we added the language subject to appropriation, our argument goes away. If there's something else that you all wanted to see. If you're interested in a different term, I know these gentlemen would listen, but Leslie pointed out to me that what the agreement says is you only have an obligation under that agreement as long as that boat's operating and sending you a check. So I never ever envisioned, because I know you've got financial concerns too that you talked about, Mr. Bruner, but I never envisioned this lease payment coming out of your savings. I envisioned the lease payment coming from that money that boat pays you every year under the development agreement, and the lease agreement we've got now says if they ain't paying you money under the development agreement, you don't pay the LCD for that lease. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
So I don't, I don't care what the term is. I think it's right that the term's tied to your receipt of money from the boat. That's what the existing agreement says, and if I'm in your shoes, I'd want it to continue saying that. And that, to me, answers the term problem. The only other issue with the term is taking the argument that I'm making and the LCD's making on behalf of the freeholders today away from us so we don't end up here tomorrow. You don't want to make a deal today and us come knocking on your door again next year. So you want to fix that. But Leslie can work that out. That's easy. Does that answer your question? Okay.
I have one more question. I don't know if anybody knows. Do you know how many homes?
From me, the Navy?
I don't know, he's long-winded. But does anybody know how many homes that the levy protects?
I think in the meeting that we talked about, 700, is that correct? Or is it more than that?
Does that include businesses or just homes?
Homes. When we, the LCD, actually the city of Lawrenceburg applied for on behalf of the LCD and IOCRA grant. Jackie probably is aware of that, and the mayor, because you've been asked to sign and provide information, and we got the $700,000 grant. They came up with 665 individual units in this town.
How many?
665. Now, how they do that, I don't know. That's back to government and their census and
Well, and that's
so
just
on.
residential. That does not include
That did not include
commercial.
business, yes.
Because I just in speaking with my father, he remembers paying the tax before the boat was here, and that was on that building, his commercial building.
Correct.
Well, by just going by those numbers off resident, I mean, that would be to make up $1 million shortfall. That'd be over $1,500 a year.
Again,
But I don't think you
to
just take the residential.
think a tax is a
Do you know
resolution
what
is
the total-
foolhardy.
I don't know what the total is, but I mean, like I said, I know businesses were also, if you owned a building, whether it was residential or commercial,
You were
the tax
taxed,
was
yeah.
levied.
Right.
What is the multiplier for that tax? Do you know offhand? I mean, it's
Uh,
not big.
There's been no tax since I've been involved with the Lawrenceburg Conservancy District.
Since there's been a tax.
Is there a standard,
Almost 19 years.
is there a standard tax, though? I mean, is there a multiplier that is used in, you know,
I would default to Jackie and her knowledge. I mean, the LCD, is my understanding of the Conservancy District,
I
they
don't-
applied for a tax just like any other
I
entity.
don't recall, this goes way back when there was a tax, that I ever knew how they came up with the tax rate. Probably the assessed valuation, took the assessed valuation and then figured out how much money they probably needed, and they worked something out that way with the state. The state helped, I'm sure.
They couldn't have considered how much they needed to operate because they always operated at a
Well,
shortfall and took the money
I
from the
don't
city of
know,
Lawrenceburg.
E.B.
Well, I'm just
You know, it's
trying to
been-
answer Councilman Bruner's
Well,
question.
regardless, it would cost people a good amount of money.
Correct.
I paid a levy tax. I paid it for years. And like Richard said, it finally came off of my tax statement when, I guess LCD was created and the riverboat came in.
When the riverboat came in, not when the LCD was created.
It wasn't much of a tax. I mean, it was a small tax.
I'd say mine was like $67.
I think it was 7, the last one I found records for in the legal was in 99 or 2000, and it was 7 cents.
That's the last one I recall seeing too. And I don't know why I saw it, but 7 cents rings a bell.
Any other questions?
Yeah, have you approached Greendale for any funds yet, since you maintain their levy as well?
We have not. I will tell you that when there was the discussion, earnest discussion about the Greendale Master Drainage Plan, we agreed and we paid for about 67 to 70% of the engineering cost for that master drainage plan. If it was going to come to our pump station, we wanted to know what was going on and wanted to make sure it was right. That was about $107,000 total. At the time, we as the board, and the board has substantially changed now, I think there are 3 common members, 3 remaining members. We had said that we wouldn't move on the project until we could find a way to pay for the project. That was the board's decision at the time. We also said that we weren't going to maintain any underground piping. We weren't in the storm sewer business. We're mowing grass and maintaining pump stations and pumps. And at the time, Greendale was agreeable to that. We had hired Umball. You're familiar with Umball. They had done a case study for us in preparation of a potential tax or a fee for usage. They could not complete their study because we could not get our arms around what our operating costs were going to be. We were in a nightmare situation with engineering firms and our FEMA issue. We did not know about this Army Corps project that we had to do, and we did not know or have firm numbers on what it would cost to bring the Greendale levy up to current engineering standards. So we had 3 big items that we couldn't give to Umball for them to give us accurate calculations on how we were going to raise funds, whether it was going to be through tax or some kind of user fee based on water flow. Does that answer your question?
I'd like to make a comment on what Mr. Bruner said and fall back to nobody has a crystal ball. But we've had revenue coming in to the city for 19 years, if I'm wrong, correct me. We have $0 in our rainy day fund. I'm not going to put the blame or on anybody in particular, but I think over the years, the past administrations, our money has been used irresponsibly. They should have done more to make sure that we had funds available instead of spend. Right now, we are at a financial crisis. Hard to meet our own budget for 215. And expense is, like you said, with your expenses are going to continue to grow. Our expenses are going to continue to grow. Irresponsible spending has to stop. And it's, like you said, you're taking care of the freeholders, our constituents, the taxpayers. I don't feel like I should raise my neighbor's electric bill because people in the past have irresponsibly spent money on projects and loans and grants, and all this come back on the people, the citizens of Lawrenceburg. I don't think the levy tax should be reintroduced. I think if we can help you to maintain your expenses, to keep the levy, especially to keep the levy where the freeholders don't have to pay levy insurance, which I was told we are eventually going to have to pay insurance, whether it's fixed or not. So that's one more expense. I think from this day forward, we need to look forward to what our expenditures are going to be, allow enough money to cover them, and quit creating capital projects that's going to end up not being able to be paid for or maintained. And one example is they want to do $10,000 worth of landscaping. Well, that's not a lot of money, but is it necessary? When we're looking at the money that we're lacking, we had a 53% decrease in gaming revenue. It hit it, and it hit us hard. And we're working on our budget right now, and our expenses have grown, but yet we're going to have to cut, we're going to cut, hopefully, we'll agree to cut a lot of unnecessary items that have been going out that shouldn't have been going out. And yes, I want to help the LCD. I want our levies maintained. I want to see you to be able to operate and continue to operate for the next 50 years and not come back on the citizens of Lawrenceburg because of mismanagement of money.
Well, again, I don't know that mismanagement of money can be equated to the LCD and their operations, and
I'm not talking about the LCD, I'm talking
Well-
about the money that the city of Lawrenceburg has squandered.
Well, in all fairness, the LCD spent money that, you're going to probably get a dart or two in my back, but the community athletic park was a pet project of mine, but I pushed hard to get that money spent. It turned in from a $185,000 practice field to just south of $3 million, and frankly, with consideration from the city of Lawrenceburg, who helped pay for the lighting system, which was a nice, small six-figure number, we've got one heck of a facility over there for the citizens of this community and the surrounding areas. But spend money for improvements. I mean, again, I'll agree. Some projects shouldn't happen, some probably should, and I'm not here to make that decision up for you and tell you what you ought to do with your money. But it's budget time. We've got a legal issue between us. We think, if you can come up somehow, see fit to work with that existing lease agreement and increase those funds to that $2 million number, we think it'll go a long way to helping the LCD serve the stakeholders and citizens of this community. Any other questions? Thank you.
I just have some comments. Well, and I agree with both Councilman Bruner and Councilwoman Jane Pope. I mean, our fees are going down. Next year, the legislature may do away with our wagering and admission revenue. That's not going to hurt us very much, but it's definitely going to, I mean, it will hurt us, but not as much as it's going to hurt everyone else around us. But that's a possibility. So there's less revenue than what we're even, what we're even getting this year, or what we've received this year. My thoughts on revising the lease, I disagree that it should actually be characterized as a lease. For one thing, that would include Indiana Gaming having to characterize that additional payment as lease rent. I don't know that they're willing to do that. My suggestion would be a revenue sharing agreement. My recommendation to the board would be $500,000 for the next 2 years in a revenue sharing agreement. And then at that time, we would look at it, put an automatic renewal unless one party gives notice. In talking with the mayor when this issue first came up, and I believe Mr. Holcraft, who was involved in the prior meeting, and Mr. Lawrence, that was the number that we had agreed to offer. And then we were told that they wanted 1.5 in addition to the 500 that is already paid. I mean, one of the things that has not been brought up is that this conservancy district carries more money than any other conservancy district in the whole country. I understand the operational expenses, but the capital outlays in your budgets are, well, and like I said, I was only able to get 13 and 14 budgets, but those same capital outlays are in both years' budget, even though there was some spent in 13 of just shy of $1 million on the capital outlays. So, like I said, I'm not sure. I do know that there are some differences as far as the budgets and the fees paid on salaries between 13 and 14. Like I said, I have not seen what's actually been paid out on those. But necessarily, the contention by Mr. Butler of the void lease, I mean, I did include in your packets for common council the different points that you know, like Mr. Butler said, going back and forth between us at this meeting is probably not going to be conducive to any type of settlement. But there are many reasons why I feel, that this lease that was executed to begin with in December of '95 is not void. So, with that said, I feel like in our financial situation, you know, our true up, who knows what's going to be next year. It was, like Jane said, I believe.
It's going to drop.
Yeah, 53%.
Drastically.
I know that Hollywood is projecting possibly, it's shy of 200 million as far as their annual adjusted gross income.
Was predicting, I think, about 3 million in true up, is what he told me.
Well,
I was
and
just
under
gonna say
our,
it would be 3 and
under
5,
our agreement,
maybe.
it can't
He
go
said
less than
around
6.
3.
Okay,
It can't
I've
go
got
less-
the paper, but I
It can't go less than 6 right now, under that agreement. So that's our bottom line.
What's the true up?
Yeah, 6 million.
But Jackie, you let them know what our true up used to be.
Well, it used to be like $31 million. Or
That's a huge drop from 31 to 3 mil or 6 mil.
Correct. And so, yeah, as far as doing a long-term agreement, I would definitely not recommend that. I'd say if the parties wanted to agree to a short-term agreement on a revenue sharing basis, I think that could be amenable, so.
Are we
I just
legally
think-
required to do that based upon appropriations? We can only do a 1-year agreement at a time?
On a revenue sharing agreement, that could be termed as an interlocal agreement. So, and interlocal agreements are an exception to the 364812, the section at issue through this whole thing, so.
Well, something is agreed upon. One, I think it definitely needs to have subject to appropriation. And that way, it can be long-term, but if the appropriation's not there, it's done then.
Well,
You
and
know, it
that's,
could be 1 year from now, 2 years, 5 years, whatever. After having discussion I've had discussion after the meeting with Leslie, her and her dad both called, I talked to them. You know, one thing is I look at, we're all taking care of the same people. It's not like, you know, we're looking out for Lawrenceburg, they're looking out for Rising Sun. We're looking after the same people. And then Leslie, our conversation was the development agreement could be void if the lease is void. Is that correct?
correct.
Now, does this board want to take the chance of this going to court if they did prove the lease being void, development agreement's void, there's all the money gone? Now, do you take that choice or that chance and make that choice, or do you try to come to terms and take care of our citizens at the end of the day?
And that's why I feel like
And do away
when we
with
offered the
some other stuff.
500,000, that was, you know, we were conceding that. But the one other thing that, under the lease, that Mr. Butler did mention, as far as the receipt of the $500,000 rent, the Conservancy District did release the city from any other obligation except for the extended monies received by the city under the annual payment obligation. So, that definitely plays into it. We've looked, I mean, these documents were done at a different time. I agree that the inflation, has, and, you know, we've had a good long, time where we didn't even have to really worry about it, but last year we saw the effect of all the different gaming, the basically saturation of the gaming industry through this area, and I don't think it's going to get any better.
I personally am not willing to go into a courtroom and have the lease agreement voided, where then directly Hollywood would lease from the LCD. Am I correct, if that should happen?
Well, the concern to me is not the lease, it's the development agreement. Because if that's void,
Then
The
the money
citizens
goes
gonna
straight
lynch
to
everybody.
LCD?
Yeah, that's also a contention, Jane, because I didn't find anywhere in their powers that they could do it to a private individual, which would be Indiana Gaming, so I don't know what would happen with that. But
So you're not saying what would happen with the revenue?
just to follow up, as far as, you mean as far as them being able to lease directly to Indiana Gaming? Is that correct? Like I said, I don't feel that according to the powers, unless they amend their district plan. The district plan was originally done, I believe, 83 or 85, Evie, is what you said. I think it was, in the information that they gave me, it was amended one other time, but in neither one of those times did it amend it to be able to lease to anyone besides a municipality, a park board, or a county.
Richard, do you have any comments on that?
Leslie and I have talked about this too, and we come at it from different perspectives and have a different opinion.
Richard, come up to the microphone.
I'm sorry again, Mr. Mayor. What I can tell you is if it goes to litigation, if we're not able to get it worked out, and if my contention is correct, the lease is void, not so important to you is the question you're asking, can we lease it directly to the casino? More importantly, you ought to be concerned with what's the casino going to do once that lease is declared void. And what Leslie has told me is if the lease, and I've reviewed the development agreement after she's told me this, if the lease agreement is void, that puts you all in breach of the development agreement. That breach relieves the casino of the obligation to make payments to you under that development agreement. And I could almost guarantee you that if the casino hears the lease agreement's void, they're going to knock on your door and say, you're in breach of the lease agreement, we're not paying you that money anymore. That's the important thing. You don't want to lose that money. Can we lease it directly to the casino? Leslie says no. I say yes. I can tell you, even if Leslie's right, and it's possible that she is, I recognize that. Leslie, I think you'd agree, we're not just limited to leasing it to you. We could lease it to the county, for example. So maybe there becomes a bidding war. Who's going to cut us the best deal so we can get more money from the casino? And while I've got the microphone, I want to ask you all two more things, because we want to get this settled with you tonight. We don't want to go to court either. But I want you to consider that the reason you're getting all the money you're getting under that development agreement is because your predecessors, and more importantly, their predecessors 19 years ago, said, casino, you want our property, that's okay, but we're going to give all that revenue up to the city. It could have said, you want to use our property, we want all the money, the heck with you, city. But those guys 19 years ago thought it was better for you all to have the money. So the reason you're sitting here and you're getting all that money under that development agreement right now is because former boards, the LCD, decided you ought to have it because they had all they needed. And what this board's figured out is doesn't have all it needs anymore. The freeholders are short and they want to shore it up. And in the spirit of that board those 19 years ago that said, let's work together, let's give all the money to the city except what we need to take care of the freeholders, what we'd ask is not bother with whether Leslie's right or I'm right, the lease is void, the lease isn't void, but take care of those people. Make sure that they don't ever have a tax. Make sure that the levy all works. Their lives are protected. Their property's protected. Use the same logic and wisdom you guys used previously and that old board used previously. And the last thing I want to tell you is, and this is part of the being honest with you and laying our cards on the table, I kind of showed you what my advice is to the guys. And there's not a lot of risk to the LCD going through this litigation. They'll incur some attorney fees for me. And if we lose, we're in the same position when we lose that we're in today. You pay us $500,000 a year and we all go on down the road. But if we're right and you lose, that puts you in breach of that development agreement. and all that money under the development agreement goes away. And that's what we all want to avoid. These guys don't want that to happen, but their duties to the freeholders, they got to look out for them. But that's why they're here, and that's why they want to get it worked out. So last thing I'll say is, I think a couple of meetings ago, we voted to make a $2 million demand. I don't know if you all, this is your public meeting too, Mayor, if you'd indulge us. I don't know if you want to revise that in light of the new information that our chairman has given us. If you don't want to revise it, I think the ball's sort of in your court to respond to that $2 million demand, and you've got advice from your attorney, and I guess we'd like to hear from you if you all don't want to revise your demand.
Now that demand, you're asking for 2 million additional or $1.5 million additional?
It was $1.5 million additional. It was a regular payment of $2 million, adjusted annually for inflation, pick out whatever index we want to use, published by the U.S. government for that inflation rate. And if, Leslie wants it to be short-term, we were satisfied with the 50-year. I'm sure that's something that you would talk about and entertain discussions about. But anything else, Jane?
Can we negotiate? Can we meet in the middle? Can we, you want to...
Absolutely. There's
2 million, can we go, you want 150,000 more? Oh, no, I'm sorry,
0.5 million.
Yeah, 1.5 million, can we go 750,000, half of 1.5?
I think our group came here expecting to negotiate. Our group actually took a vote on a $2 million demand, and I don't think we've ever heard an official position from the council.
Mayor,
But we'd listen to anything.
can we take a 5-minute recess, and then can this board come back in and have some discussion and call their board back in on negotiating?
No, you can't. I don't think you can take no recess and meet. No.
I don't think we meet
They're
together.
gonna talk
no.
about it, let's just talk about it. We're all here.
Wait a minute, before we do,
We're all here for
I
it.
believe it's where Hollywood can go to the gaming commission right now and renegotiate our contract.
True.
So either way, we don't know what's gonna happen in this legislation. We're afraid they're gonna come in and take more.
And if they don't like where they're at now with the 6 million, they could necessarily, what you're saying is necessarily go to the IGC and
That's why I definitely
Our
wanted to say, subject to appropriation.
Well, it definitely have to be, but, we're facing other things too, not just the LCD, the legislation and everything else.
But to me, we can't take the chance of losing everything to our citizens.
I agree.
I mean, that,
At the same time, I mean, they have to understand our position too. I mean, we have to look out for the same people they're looking out for. So,
and that's why I don't
But that's
understand why
what-
there's such a question here.
well, I mean,
Like they
If
said,
we lose everything we got, how are we gonna look out for
they lose
anybody?
in court, they're still gonna get their $500,000. We lose in court, we lose
Maybe.
everything.
We don't know
maybe,
that.
maybe not. I mean, that's what we're talking
We've been
about.
told maybe not too many times to lose.
They have a written lease for the $500,000. I don't know how they could possibly get less than that.
Well, if our gaming, if IGC says, hey, we're gonna do something else, yeah, it may be completely different.
True.
So
Right.
it's not just,
But would that does that come into play with the land lease?
it wouldn't matter.
Mr. Seymour would like to comment,
It's
Mayor.
tied to the development
Wait a
agreement, so
minute,
yes,
Jane.
it would have on the ground lease and the sublease.
What do you have, Jane?
Mr. Seymour would like to comment.
I'd like to make a comment as a freeholder and a taxpayer. I mean, you guys got a decision to make. It don't matter if we have 38 million in the bank over here, and it don't matter if your revenues are going down. The LCD has a job to do for people like me and most people in this room. So what you're telling me is that you're gonna sit here and we come to you and we ask for a certain amount of money, and what this council needs to do right now is figure how important, if there is anything that ever came across this table any more important than this, Fall Fest is more important. Figuring out how much money we're gonna give away all over town is more important. Thursday night music on the river is more important. Guys, we need this much money to operate. It's gonna be real hard for you to, it's efficient over there. People do their jobs. It's gotta be done. There's no choice. We don't have a choice. Y'all need to think about that. What are you going to put above this? You brought up utilities. You got a utility board that chooses not to raise the rent.
Right.
We've created a welfare society around this town.
Including the LCD.
Well, we're doing a job, Leslie.
Oh, I understand you're doing a
And
job.
we ain't got no choice, and we gotta do it. It's no different than your budget, we got it. 12, 15 years from now, there's gonna be no money over there, and you're gonna have to deal with it anyhow.
I don't agree with you when you said we've created a welfare city. I just don't agree with giving out $400,000, $200,000 grants, but yet upping the rates of our utilities when we could subsidize them. I do agree with
That's a
everything
different
else you said.
statement.
I do agree with everything else you said. How important is that $350,000 for Fall Fest? How important are those grants that have went nowhere, that properties are being foreclosed?
You guys need to decide how important it is for us to keep the Corps of Engineers, FEMA, and other people happy, and for us to do our job, and how long we're gonna be able to do it.
And I am willing to do that, and I am willing to negotiate a number, subject to appropriations on a year-to-year basis.
There was just over $50+ million sent on a building down the end of the street, and we're having this conversation of our
Right.
citizens.
How important,
to me.
how important is that $49 million that's spent down there? How much revenue is gonna bring that back into the city?
And we
Don't
got,
look back, look forward. What are we gonna do now?
there's $3.5 million showing in the budget that's proposed right now for a 10-county grant program. We can take care of 10 counties, but we can't take care of our citizens. That's pretty sad to even sit up here and have to think about.
Well,
Don't get out of hand now.
can we discuss a number? Do we have to go to 2 million?
Well, it could be something like this. I mean, what I was thinking is since, Greendale part of levy too, maybe, this isn't exact numbers, but, Lawrenceburg, 1.7 million, Greendale, 300,000. There can be a mixture of numbers.
And Greendale should contribute because part of your expenditures will be maintaining Greendale's levy. And the city of Lawrenceburg, if I'm wrong, correct me, bought and paid for that levy, or did the LCD pay for that levy?
Greendale, Lawrenceburg, Dearborn County contributed the money to convert the railroad bed that was donated by Argosy into Lawrenceburg, and Greendale paid.
He, under microphone.
Well, I'm looking, I can't remember what this, 1 million.
I think everybody threw in.
It was a third.
Was it thirds? EB sites again. Lawrenceburg did not pay for all of it. It was thirds of the county, Greendale. Lawrenceburg, the LCD didn't pay for any of it. The LCD agreed to accept that levy, amend their charter, or bylaws, or whatever the heck it is, to include the maintenance of the Greendale levy once it was certified by FEMA. And once the whole purpose was to get that area flood protected so that Greendale could actually generate development. Does that answer the question?
Yes, that answers my question, and yes, I believe they should contribute to help you with your yearly expenditures.
That's why we invited them to be present as well, and they declined that offer.
You had a number before.
They're asking for 1.5 million more. I'm offering half, $750,000, subject to appropriations with an inflation increase based upon what Mr. Butler stated.
And agreed to by both boards.
and agreed to by both boards. At least it's something. Hopefully you won't have to spend as much to do what you need to do to come in line with the Army Corps of Engineers and FEMA. I now believe that regardless of what you do with the levee, the pumps, the wells, the citizens in the floodplain will end up paying flood insurance.
Flood insurance, not tax, but flood insurance.
Flood insurance. Can anybody from the board reassure me we won't? Because it really looking that way. And that's another thing that upsets me. That was made public in 2008. It was never discussed until 2014. I was not aware of what was going on. And I've lived in Lawrenceburg all my life. I didn't know our levee was breached in 2 places. I didn't know our wells weren't being taken care of. I didn't know pumping stations were missing. What's that going to do to our residents? What's that going to do to our property business owners if they have to start paying flood insurance?
Cheap FEMA's in, you probably have to pay it anyway.
That's what I'm saying. The way I'm hearing it, we're going to pay it, whether Jane Pope likes it or not.
Would like me to respond, just.
Yes. There's a microphone right there you're being talking about.
On that, yeah.
Just sit there for a minute.
Jan, I barely recall, pardon me, Councilwoman. I'm not quite sure what you're referring to in 2008, but it's probably something I said. First
I heard
of all,
it was brought before city council in a private meeting,
well, it was.
and it was never made aware to the public, although
There was a public meeting in February of 2008, I believe. That was our first deaccreditation meeting. Or no, that's when, in 2008, that's when we were first notified. February of 2008 for Greendale, April of 2008 for Lawrenceburg, notified that the levies had to be accredited or had to be
we're
certified.
in 214.
Yes, I know. I'm well aware of that. You can point the finger at me. I've been in charge of the LCD all that time. We ran into an engineering nightmare serving 2 taskmasters, but I want to get back to your specific points. We're all going to have to buy flood insurance. That might very well be the case in years down the road. I don't think it'll be because the levee's deaccredited. I think it'll be because the federal government's going to try to find a way to generate more flood insurance dollars to offset their deficits. And I have seen proposed legislation that says that anyone protected by a federally sponsored levee will be required to buy flood insurance. All right, so that's been proposed. Proposals take a long time to take effect, but in 2008 there were other proposals that are taking effect today. You ask what, we will be faced with an option, and I told our gentleman in my board in 2008, it's going to be gut check time when the engineers come back to us again, as they did in 2010, and tell us that we're looking at a $12 to $14 million project. We're talking about operations into the future. This board could very well decide, whoever it may be, when that decision time comes, they may decide not to spend that $12 to $14 million. Because it might be that 2 years from now, and I'm thinking about 2 years down the road, maybe less than that, when we'll have to face that decision, it might be that there are other options available, maybe flood insurance. We've already been told by FEMA, if you recall at the last meeting where the representatives were here, that was in March, I believe, that probably, if the Lawrenceburg levee becomes deaccredited, will either be an A or a D flood zone. Flood zone A would be the death knell for Lawrenceburg behind the levee. That would limit the ability to build anything, repair anything. Nobody wants to come to a town like that. You're going to see the industry leave. Flood zone D, and flood insurance would be required, by the way, if we were designated a flood zone A. I've been told that that probably won't happen. If we are de-accredited, we will become a flood zone D. Flood zone D, the requirement to purchase flood zone disappears. The requirement to purchase flood insurance disappears. However, flood zone D is recognized as a probable area to be flooded. And I'll look at Mr. McLaughlin in the other end of the room, still here. If he is a federally governed, he operates, president and CEO of a federally governed institution. He's got regulators, examiners that look at his operations. I question whether or not any federally governed financial institution, if they're going to lend money in a flood zone D area without requiring flood insurance. And a flood zone D, the cost of flood insurance is going to be the same as it is for flood zone A, which is very expensive, 10 times what it is today, and it'll be going up over a short period of time. But the fact is that we don't know what's going to happen in the future. The LCD board's going to be faced with a very tough decision in a couple of years about whether or not they're going to spend the money to get the levee accredited, knowing that a few years down the road, it might not have made any difference. So we know we have one sure thing we have to do. We have an agreement signed with the Army Corps of Engineers, the U.S. government, Secretary of War in 1939, that says we will maintain and operate this levee according to their standards. And that's what we're doing right now. That's a $2.3 million number that we didn't anticipate last year when we set up the 2014, and now going into 15, the project will move forward. But that's something we have to do for the Army Corps of Engineers. By doing that, that will enable us to finish the design and engineering for a certification project that will keep the levee accredited. All right. I think that answers your points you brought up.
Thank you. Can we discuss numbers now?
Yeah, the 750, I don't have any problem with it, but the inflator, I think it'll be controlled by the city, not the LCD. That's my opinion, I will vote.
Are you gentlemen acceptable to
Wait a minute, what's the other part of the board got to say about it? It's up to you.
Pretty quiet down there, JR.
I'm just taking it all in. Like,
It's up to the board what they.
we gotta make a decision tonight on the money. I'd kinda like to go over our budget, see what we can cut, what we can afford before we start throwing some dollar signs out there.
Well, like they said, what's the main priority? You know, there's lots of things in that budget that can be
We gotta know
cut.
what we can afford too, you know, what we cut to come up with this money if we wanna pay this.
You got $3.5 million in 10 county grant program, just alone.
So we need to decide if we wanna take it out of that or what we're gonna do here.
Any comments from the board members on what's acceptable on money?
David Lori, they'll take that under advisement, and we have a meeting tomorrow night, and we will decide.
The problem with that is that's not the city's position, that's Jane's position. We've got a $2 million demand voted on by this board, and if we want to have a negotiation here at this joint meeting, let's have it, but that's going to require you all to take a vote with respect to that offer or make a counter offer or something.
Well, first of all, let's take a vote, see if you want to accept that offer.
Which one? Oh, they do?
That's the LCD's offer.
Okay.
So you're,
I'll make a
it'll be
motion.
1.25 a year then? You're talking about seven?
No, they're talking
No,
about,
and they're offer-
their demand is $2 million and to be adjusted annually for inflation.
But she made a motion.
Jane's motion I'm
of
talking about, I want to get it straight up.
750 plus the 5.
So it's 1.25 million.
They-
That wasn't
made
a
a
motion.
yet.
She
I thought
make a
she didn't.
motion.
No.
No, I
Oh, I
didn't.
thought it was a motion, I'm sorry.
Let's go with theirs first, and we'll come back
Continue to give them the 500,000.
Wait a minute,
to. Wait a
Jane.
minute, Gene, let's go to,
We need to make a motion on, we need to, like Mr. Butler said, if that's how you want to proceed, they made a demand for 2 million with, to be adjusted annually for inflation. We can either accept that offer or reject that offer.
Let's take a roll call vote.
So we need to do that first?
Let's do it, wait a minute, Jane, we'll run this meeting. We'll take a roll call vote, see if you wanna do it. Then we'll go back to what you wanna do.
I'm not understanding, a roll call vote on the 2 million?
2 million
On the 2
demand,
million,
yeah.
Dave,
To be adjusted annually.
Well, first, doesn't somebody need to make a motion to either accept it or deny it?
Okay.
I'll make a motion to deny the 2 million and negotiate.
for a second,
Second.
all in favor,
Aye.
all against? Ayes have it. Okay, now go back to yours.
This would be a yearly motion at 1.25 million, 750 and 500.
I make a motion to continue to give the LCD their $500,000 and add $750,000 per year, subject to appropriations, with inflatable rate based on, how did you want me to say that, Mayor? This,
City control that, not them.
Well, the way that it was
But we'd have to
explained,
do it by
wasn't
the
that-
govern-
Nobody controlling it,
Well,
besides the government,
I just think
whatever.
that, like I said, I think it could be a short-term revenue sharing agreement, a couple of years, and then see where we
where we
are,
are then.
see where we are then. That would make more sense. And then also, the fact
But why-
is that the
subject to
same board would not
appropriations-
be, you know, it could be a whole different council, and we're obligating future council people,
and that's why we're doing it subject to appropriations. I don't even want to
Then
go
it could
2
only be
years. I
1
want to
year.
go year to year.
Okay, well, then you wouldn't have to add to your motion the annual inflation, because if we address it every year, then
We can do it then.
we
Yeah,
can
but if
adjust
it has a inflation, then don't you just have to take a vote, or in the budget, you vote the money's there or not there? You don't have to actually go back and negotiate, it's there, and either you vote to put the money in the budget or you don't.
With the inflator though, if you put a hand on this year, it could come into play this year too. You don't know what it is.
Well, I think this would be for the 2015 budget, I would think.
Yes, this is
Right.
for 215 budget.
But you don't have any idea on control of it.
That wouldn't necessarily have to be added in for 215, correct, Mr. Butler?
Sorry, Jane, what was your question?
My motion is to add the $750,000, subject to appropriations from year to year. Do it a year's time. Take the inflation out for 215, relook at it for 216, and consider the inflation then.
Come back and negotiate every year?
Yes.
And so your question is what?
We are not looking at inflation for 215. We're going to stick with a solid number.
You can craft an offer any way you want to craft it. I guess that's the best way to say it. And to the extent you need advice about how to craft that offer, you got to get it from this lady rather than me. But yeah, I mean, we've got a lease agreement. It was a 50-year deal. We were proposing increasing from 500,000 to 200,000. It stays a 50-year deal. We want to adjust it for inflation and make it subject to appropriation. That was our offer. You've rejected it. If you want to propose something else, you guys all figure that out, and we're here to listen and help any way we can.
That way, Gene, if you did that, that would help us see what's going to help in legislation.
Well, my motion is the 500,000 plus the 750,000, subject to appropriations, without inflation playing a role for the year 2015.
I don't vote though. Anybody second that? I just like a second.
I can try another motion, I guess.
Yeah, you can do this. Go ahead.
Like I said, this is a starting point. I mean, I can continue on. I'll make a motion to put in the 2015 budget $1.5 million for the LCD contingent upon the fact if Greendale contributes $300,000. That way Greendale's contributing a little bit and it gets them closer to $2 million mark.
You're saying 1.5 total, additional 1 million?
1.5 total.
So
from the city of
additional 1
Lawrenceburg.
million?
Yes. And then contingent upon the fact if Greendale contributes $300,000.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor, there's a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against? Ayes have it. That help you out? I mean, it's a start, guys, but we gotta see where this legislation's going. We can end up here nothing. We don't know what they're gonna do. We got lobbyists working on it now.
Can you
So
repeat
we
your
went from
motion?
1.25 to 1.15.
Leslie, I think it was to
1.5 would be from us and then
2015
Greendale
budget.
contribute
$1.5
$300,000.
million
That gives them
LCD,
1.8 million. close to what they
Contingent
want.
on the fact that Greendale is will give them 300,000.
And that's
Is that right?
1.5 total.
It's contingent upon Greendale
1.5
putting
total.
300,000.
Oh, okay.
Contingent
Right.
on Greendale giving
Contingent
Oh,
upon.
okay, so that's $1 million on
Greendale
top of
giving
their fund. Is that
300,000.
what you're saying? Okay.
Okay.
Are you going to accept our offer?
They're meet,
Go ahead, back to the microphone.
Extra 300.
Like,
go to that one. I thought they were gonna, David said they were gonna meet tomorrow night.
Contingent upon Greendale.
Well, I thought
contributing
decided to do negotiations here
I
instead of here.
know, I don't know.
Get her done.
Leslie,
I'm gonna tell you,
subject
we're
to
gonna lose
appropriations.
legislation. Let's see if we don't.
That's why the subject to appropriations.
1.5 million to
Wait, should
LCD
be.
contingent upon
We're gonna have
Greendale
to tighten our
contributing
belts, that's all.
300,000 for the year
I wanna
2015.
help them out too.
Yeah, I know, but I meant, I don't mean just that.
But I wanna see
I
where
mean,
we're at too.
you know, it's, the whole city's gonna have to tighten.
Right. Oh, yeah, everybody does.
I mean, you
They do
know.
too.
A bunch of our workers are gonna have to tighten up their belts.
That's what we're here for, maybe get a result.
You've hit the ball back over the net at us, I suppose. So we need to respond. And Mayor, with your permission, I'll talk to my guys about what my thoughts are about the offer, and we'll talk amongst ourselves, since this is a joint meeting, and respond back to you. My advice to you is reject the offer. The offer really isn't an offer because it's contingent upon something nobody in this room can control. The other problem with it is that we raised an issue to Lawrenceburg about the validity of the lease. And the only parties to the lease are the LCD and the city of Lawrenceburg. And the LCD asked you for more money under that lease. They asked you for more money because they own the property the casino sits on. You all lease that property, you sublease it to the casino. I don't know if you're proposing that Greendale now be part of the lease, or that you're leasing the property for 1.5 million if Greendale just agrees to give us 300,000 for the fun of it. And I can't speak for Greendale at this meeting, and Greendale didn't want to be here because, or at least let me tell you, Mayor didn't want to be here, because Greendale's not a part of the lease. I can tell you that in private conversations, the mayor told me, hell, if you want 2.5 million for it and Lawrenceburg wants it there, we'll lease the ground for $2.5 million. They'd be happy to give the LCD $2.5 million for that ground. I don't think Lawrenceburg wants that.
Well, and not to consider the fact, Mr. Butler, too, that we own part of the leased land. You realize that as
Nope.
well?
No, I don't realize that.
Okay.
And we can talk about that. I mean, I don't.
But I mean,
dispute that.
part of the leased land is actually already owned by Lawrenceburg.
Well, I doubt you're leasing from the LCD land you already own.
It's in the description.
That's not a very smart deal.
No, it's not. So that's another reason.
And
for this
I can
board
tell you
to-
what I did on behalf of my guys is, I went and talked to Mike Hall, and he drew me a map of exactly what we own. And sure enough, the old boat sits on it, and the new boat sits on it. But, guys, we got a dispute about the lease. They're paying us $500,000. We really haven't heard an offer we can take to the bank, because it's going to depend on what Greendale says. I can't tell you what Greendale's going to say. I suspect they would say that, why would we give you $300,000? We're not leasing the ground. And understand, by the way, outside of that lease, Lawrenceburg doesn't pay a penny to the LCD to protect anybody from flooding in Greendale and Lawrenceburg. The only payment Lawrenceburg makes to the LCD is to lease that ground. Not just, here's some money to help fund your operations, it's here's some money so we can lease that ground. So, we can't, I guess we could accept a contingent offer, but we don't know that you'd ever pay us any more money, right?
Yeah,
because Greendale might say no. And so we're back at square one. And again, I can't speak for Greendale. And the LCD isn't asking for Greendale just to give us some money for the fun of it.
Not for the fun of it, it's to maintain their levy.
So is it your position your board has never considered asking Greendale for additional funds?
No, it's my position that the board voted a couple of months ago that at this meeting that Lawrenceburg called, the LCD isn't asking Greendale for any money.
Okay.
The LCD was asking Lawrenceburg for more money for the lease.
Well, can we hear from your board how they feel about contributions from Greendale?
Absolutely. I wanted to advise the board, my advice was it's kind of no offer at all. We certainly can't bank on it. On that basis, I'd reject it.
Well, first, can your board vote on the motion? I mean, can they take a vote here?
Yeah, you understand, Mike, I wanted to give them
No,
my
I'm saying,
legal advice on it
because she's
before they
saying,
take a
could
vote.
they speak, but I would rather see them just make their motion first and
These guys
either
do what they
accept or
want, they're all
deny.
pretty independent-minded, they do what I tell them to
Sure,
do,
right.
so. But I'm giving my advice, I'll stand out of your way, Mr. Chairman and board members.
Well, Richard, you started off by saying it wasn't a valid offer because it was contingent upon somebody else not party. So
Well,
that-
I don't want to mince words. I mean,
Hey, hey, wait a minute, if we, get a microphone, guys, so we can tape all this. You're gonna talk back and forth with each other.
Well, and
It
even the
certainly
board
isn't-
members, could have a seat at these tables,
Right,
where you guys could
Everyone on the
discuss it.
microphone, board member will sit there, they can speak too.
If there's other questions
Yeah,
that this
and
board might have.
I was probably careless with my words. It's certainly a valid offer. They voted on it. I guess what I mean is you can't bank on it. You don't leave here with any more money tonight. That's all I meant. Poor choice of words. Good point.
I just want to clarify that.
Yes, sir.
Dave, your thoughts?
Well, we can't do anything contingent, that's for sure. And our expenses are pushing $2.3 million this year, not 1.8. So, I mean, if you want to figure Greendale's part of it, it's not that much. It wouldn't be 300,000, even at 1.8.
Speak up,
It's very,
speak
very
up,
low.
please.
Pull that microphone to you, Dave.
I don't know, talk a little louder or something, David, please.
Okay. I personally would make a motion to decline because it's just not there. You're looking at, you talked about capital expenditures that Greendale has, $3 million on the water drainage that we're proposing to do. You didn't look at what we're spending in the relief wells in Lawrenceburg. Just the relief wells alone is $9.3 million. We are expending, of that $17 million we have in our budget for next year, $14 million of it is for Lawrenceburg in this pool. So we're looking out for everybody. And we're just trying to make the ends meet. We don't want to have a problem down the road when we're all gone, and we don't want to tax anybody, and you don't want that either. The insurance, that's another thing that FEMA and President Obama that's up to them. We have no control over that. It's all because of Katrina. FEMA's broke. So they're going to try to tax anybody depending on elevation, whether you're in the bowl or not. You're going to have an elevation certificate. So, and then your fee will be based on that elevation. And just, it's going to happen. I mean, like Edie says, it's a matter of time, but that's because FEMA's broke because of Katrina. But I'd make a motion that we decline this offer because it's just not, it's not enough. The Lawrenceburg Conservancy District owns the land that's under the boat that makes the money. if we did an income approach on it, the lease would be about $5 million. You know,
I looked it up before the meeting.
Thought you guys were gonna take a vote. You're talking to us. Well, you should be talking to your board.
well, we're all in conjunction here.
We'll take a vote.
I make a motion, we decline the offer.
Dave's made a motion. Is there a second to Dave's motion to decline the offer?
I'll second.
There's a first and a second. Is there any further discussion about the offer being made? If not, all in favor of declining the offer, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Thank you.
I would like to make a motion. I'm gonna make a motion that starting in 2015 budget, give a LCD $1.1 million additional, plus their $500,000 they're already getting, with a 3% increase per year, subject to appropriation.
Take a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Have you calculated what that would be, Mike?
45,000.
45,000 a year?
Yeah.
Is that correct? You mean, where's the 3% coming off of is one?
Well, I'm kind of going union contract. What we have is 3%. You're kind of using Lawrenceburg's numbers.
Okay, got a motion, get a second?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against? Ayes have it.
Back in your
Now,
court.
back in your court. Talk to them, don't talk to me.
Gentlemen, you heard the offer, 1.1 additional plus a 3% adjustment, without any contingent participant,
Subject to appropriation.
subject to appropriation. Is there a motion to accept that offer?
That would put you at 1.6.
Mm-hmm. Gentlemen, I'll entertain a motion to accept that offer or decline.
Feel like a used car salesman here.
Can I clarify your motion? So 215, you said 215.
Starting 2015 in the budget.
What did, I mean, as far as any kind of term, I mean, we're gonna still have to address that.
It won't make our expenditure.
Well, I assumed going with
Year
the
to
lease
year?
that it is, but
Oh.
subject to appropriation, so it could be ended at any year if whoever the administration is chooses not to budget the money.
Part of the boat stuff paying you.
Well,
But I
that would
still-
tie to that
Yeah, but I
agreement,
still,
correct?
I would still advise against putting into the lease. We would do a separate revenue sharing agreement interlocal with them. Try not to delve into the development agreement at all.
Yeah, I didn't mean to open anything up, but I want to just make sure it's subject to appropriation. I don't want to tie any administration, and
It'll be a side besides going in the lease.
so that way they can,
Chance to go in and, you know what I mean, if we open it.
because it
then
could
they
even
have
be
to agree.
this board next year, maybe they decide they don't do it, or maybe it's 3 years from now, 5 years, 10 years.
No,
But subject to appropriation
We
covers
can't
very
that.
fair deal, they should take it.
Lease
Very fair.
for that revenue agreement. We lose everything.
How's, like these other towns, the Riverboat Mall, they got an agreement, right? Contract?
They have interlocal agreements, yeah.
And the sad
All
part
the-
is, the ball is in their court.
Yeah, I think they can. I think that
not.
depending upon how our money goes, that we could look at those and change all those.
the bank.
Maybe we could skim
I mean, it's
some
not
off
like
the other
next year
towns
they're
around
gonna
here.
I don't, let me ask Leslie. Our interlocals with all the towns and the libraries and schools and that,
Mike,
those are all subject to change if our money
kind of
really drops,
term?
right? Yeah. JR.
That was with a
Subject to
3% increase this year, but it's subject to appropriation, so at any time, when they do the budget, whoever the administration is, if they didn't budget the money, then it would end.
So they can just
The
sit on that
lease would
37
be
million.
It doesn't
still
Finance all their
the
operations, they
50-year,
can sit on that 30.
Yeah, it
to the
doesn't
end
affect
of the
it.
50-year term.
It's not even
Hopefully
gonna
that won't happen.
change the lease.
Well, that's what's
Be a
gonna
separate
happen.
agreement.
I mean,
But-
because they're not coming off of any money.
But do you understand what I'm saying? we were
Anything.
told, you know, they could run out, they didn't know might cost 24 million instead of 12 million.
Anything can happen.
I'll take care of all that.
Legislation can come down and produce everything next year too, then. You know?
Or they could go back to the IGC and redo our development agreement.
It's gotta be halfway, you know, we're here for the same reason.
They can do it tomorrow and stop it.
I agree with you, Aaron, but you think they will?
That's what I mean. No, because they refuse to be here.
Yes, sir, they can go.
Essentially,
But
the
why
we
would they
tax
want to?
paying
It's down
for
to
their
like
$30 to
Goes out to 18 million predicted.
I agree with you guys on that.
I know.
It's wrong.
Goes right,
I know.
right out.
And to get technical, I mean, you could get real technical and say, well, we've maintained it for how many years now? I mean, but you know, at the end of the day, still, they've got a lot of money in the bank. I mean, and they're,
But I also know what we got in the bank, and I also know what they got in the bank. And we were told we could possibly run good for 3 years.
Exactly.
Years isn't very long.
no, it's not, but.
And they can
again,
apply, they can also apply for federal grants to help with their levy.
We can too,
Realistically,
and we need to do more of it.
we realize.
No, that's. the
Instead of
separation.
hiring marketing directors, we ought to
This
hire
is the lease
professional
land.
grant writers.
This is the lease land, okay? This is Conservancy, Pink's Conservancy, this is us.
So that was.
The old boat, part of the old boat and the pavilion there is in our land, that we pay them to lease. Which makes no
So who made
sense.
that silly decision?
Yeah, well.
Mayor, is there any way we might be able to take a restroom break
96.
or something, or could I just be excused?
We're gonna take a 5-minute restroom break.
Okay.
Go ahead, guys.
It's just.
Take 10.
We're here.
Did you hear that admonishment?
Dang, they
Yeah,
got
trying.
some
We're all gonna run out.
It's hard when you got 22.
I don't think so.
So but in the same sense, that's what our attorneys got done back then. I don't know who it was, but
I don't know who it was, and I don't even know.
Was it Pfister?
Was it?
Well, I don't think it
I have
was the
no
city
idea.
attorney, the city attorney did not prepare that.
Probably, they went out and got the big
Yes,
guys.
exactly. Argus was probably.
Pardon?
That much money.
Did you buy that Pepsi Cola?
It's in my car. You won't run out of insurance.
We got more of an operational.
I mean, in every day, every aspect of it. It's the same boat, same boat.
Every board meeting.
You can enter into an agreement for the transfer, exchange of property under any term. Point blank, that's all it says. So, even, or even, then they can use it. It is on your local.
Did they have a big crowd?
I don't.
But that's the first opening weekend. You go down there and it'll be the board meeting. My,
I'm not gonna have it there because they don't trust you. I mean, that's one great.
For the money.
Comes over,
They basically put up something on the wall and say,
I wanted to say
But yet at the same
that.
time, you want to be supposed to be your cousin.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
That's true. It's never been as much. Look, that's what kills me. I seen that budget. They're putting $3 million. We asked them to do about 30 million.
Oh, I just did.
I gotta go figure it out too. So tell him to pull his heels.
He sells that stuff, not so much a friendship, but he goes to these different shows all over the country. He goes out to Tucson, there's a big show, and he goes to, there's a big ethnographic show in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and there's big buyers with big money that buy all that stuff. Some of them may sell by the gram. Mike, the 3% increase is on the 1.6 total.
The total.
Okay. Good question.
Well, yeah, I meant for mine. Oh, and I think when I said 45, that was actually on 1.5.
You don't know. I'm on top of trust.
We gotta look out.
What? Yeah, I just went out before. Yeah. No, I'm fine. I was watching the clock and they were, when the LCD, yeah, when LCD was discussing their stuff, I went out. Yeah. Well, but thank you for the offer to do that. But I'm fine.
That's what I had. Someone does this only.
Yeah. Well, I went out there, I went out there and John Johnson said, oh, they just adjourned. I said, no, we just took a potty break.
Yeah.
Okay.
It should be out. 37 million.
That's true. Because on Wednesday night,
Let's go.
Don't call it, let's just show up. Oh, why couldn't you be in the meeting?
release it immediately.
They ready? You guys ready? Yeah.
Well,
Wait, Leslie will be back in a minute.
Leslie had to go have a bathroom break and a
I
cigarette.
think she had to have cigarettes. As soon as she gets back, Jean gets back.
Jane's outside too.
I wish we didn't. But,
We did that on purpose, Evie, made it cold.
Want to make it a quick meeting?
Hell.
I got it stored in my house for 62 degrees, and I was still
The 1.6 million, the 1.1 plus the 5, 3% of that, it's like $48,000.
Yeah, I doubt it on there.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Who's Jean outside?
She was, I saw her outside, I thought.
Try pulling on a cigarette.
She is, I'm sure.
Big night out drag on that 70 pounds.
This is the motion on the floor, right? 1.1.
I thought I saw her outside.
Increase subject to appropriation.
Oh, she didn't think I adjourned the meeting.
No, her car's still there. Oh, maybe she's in the restroom now. Oh, no, maybe, oh, no, there she is.
She's outside, I see her.
Oh, Leslie is back, okay.
You participate.
I think they are.
Call this meeting back to session.
Will the city please repeat their offer to the LCD?
For the year 2015, a $1.1 million plus the 500 already in escrow, with a 3% increase subject to appropriation. Is that correct?
When you say the 500 escrow, you're talking about, you're releasing the funds we currently have, plus through the remainder of the year, and then continue that 500 plus an additional.
Correct.
You get
Correct.
1.6
You'll
total
get the
for
500 you're due
2015.
this year that's sitting in escrow, right?
Gentlemen, you approve their offer? Is there a motion to approve that offer?
I'll make a motion, we approve the offer of 1.6 plus a 3% escalator.
Subject to appropriation.
Subject to appropriations.
There's a first and a second. Any further discussion by this board? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Thank you. On behalf of the LCD, I'd like to thank the city of Lawrenceburg for this consideration. I think it will go a long way to protect the property owners into the future, and just appreciate you working together with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, keep us dry.
Thanks, everybody.
Hold on. Before we adjourn, we still have of how you would like to do this. Is that something that Richard and I can work on and bring back to the boards, or
Oh, what? I'm sorry.
How to do
as
it?
how?
Oh,
How to do it?
Be with the revenue, wouldn't it?
Um,
yeah, I say let the two attorneys get together and prepare something and bring it to the board.
There you go.
can do that. Guess we need a motion from both sides.
How about a lunch meeting or something? You guys can put that together.
You're considering, you mean terms?
Since you
monthly
guys
or quarterly?
1.6 million, Richard, you can buy the lunch.
I can't argue with you, Mayor.
So, yeah, I guess we need a motion from both boards.
Are we talking like if we give it to them in one lump sum, or we give it to them on a monthly basis?
What the agreement should be, whether it should be in addition to our lease, which means opening up our development agreement to do that, or to do a separate interlocal revenue sharing agreement.
Mr. Mayor, if I can go first. Gentlemen, I'll entertain a motion to allow council to effect the appropriate document that we need to enter into a contract with the city of Lawrenceburg.
I will make that motion.
There's a first and a second. Any further discussion? Should we put a time limit on that motion, Dave?
Yes, we should.
Don't say this Friday.
Can we maybe get it by the end of the month at the latest? So we can wrap this.
By perhaps the October board meeting?
Yeah, that'd be.
Are you comfortable with that?
When is that? When's,
Third Thursday of October. I don't have a calendar.
That would be the third Thursday. That's the 16th. Unfortunately, I'm out of town from the 11th to the 19th.
Well, could we just have it in writing settlement at that date from
By the 10th.
the two
The 10th
entities?
is that Friday.
We can find some time to get together.
Gentleman, Dave amended his motion to include a time frame. Is the second willing to amend?
Yes.
All right. We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, guys.
What was the date, Leslie?
Basically, tried to present something to both parties by their meeting, which is on the 16th.
Okay.
October 16th.
But I'll have to get with you before the 10th.
So it's by or before the 16th, okay.
I guess we also need motion from.
We need one over here.
Agree to that time frame.
need a motion from the board for the time frame?
Motion on that.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Need a motion adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn. Gentlemen, you got what you need. Hey, keep me dry.
Evie, adjourn your meeting too.
You live on the hill.
I got a lot of family in this
Keep
town.
your mother dry.
I got a whole lot of family in this
I know,
town.
but keep her dry.
But
How'd she make out the doctor yesterday, okay? Oh, sorry. She's doing all right.
All right, brother. That's good.
I leave her decision too.
I'll be on the phone.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be talking to her and stuff. I'll try to get a hold of her.
yes, I think I know.
Nice to see you.
It's,
We'll get
Better than you.
You're still fine, huh?
Huh? Yeah, I think so too.
Well, we got that.
I just get so frustrated. All the money. It's just been.
Glad to stay the time to change.
Thank you.
I'll see you tomorrow, okay?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'll talk to her.
Thank you. Mayor.
What? Okay. Well, I talk to her about maybe once a week.
Hey, I just had